Smithfield, and welcome to UDOT Commission meeting. Before we officially start the meeting, I want to ask you to turn off your pagers, cell phones, and pacemakers so we can have the dignity in this meeting. See, that got quiet. Thank you. Thank you for being here, or thank you for yesterday. All the mayors were here, so Mayor Jeff Barnes, thank you for the hospitality yesterday. We had the opportunity to see there's some other communities here, and we had Chris Peterson also helped us to have a tour of the community with the streets, the lights, the challenges, and of course the good news that we shared yesterday. We missed Carlos yesterday, but he was battling another battle someplace else. But he has no scratches, no broken bones. He's doing fine. So let us start the meeting with the local area presentation. Oh, sorry, the introduction first. Sorry, I missed the code. Let's go from the left side of our newly Colin Commission, good friends. So let's introduce yourself.
Do I just say my name? I've never done this before, so maybe we gotta start with her.
Okay, let's start from down there and then we'll go this way.
I'll learn.
Hi, I'm Donna Law. I am a commissioner at large, and my home is in Cedar City.
I'm Danny McConkie. I'm commissioner at large, and I live in St. George.
Megan Holbrook, Region 2, Salt Lake, Summit, and Tooele.
Wayne Barlow. I represent Region 1, which we are in. I live here in Cache Valley and or Bear Lake.
Lou Kramer, Commissioner at Large from Salt Lake City, but my family has lived in this beautiful valley for 140 years. And this afternoon we're going to visit where I'm going to be buried in Minden. So I'm a committed.
We can't top that.
Are you planning something?
I turned off my pacemaker.
I can't top that. But my name is Jim Evans. I newly appointed Commissioner of Region 3, and I live in Orem. And it's good to be with you, and thanks for all your kindness and hospitality as I'm learning a whole new area. So thanks.
Thank you. And my name is Nagi Zanadi from sunny St. George, and glad to be here today, representing the rest of the state, the counties in the state. Okay. Now we have local area presentation. I guess Nathan is going to do the presentation. Please.
You know.
Oh, sorry. See, I can see that. Too much fresh air. UDOT family will be introduced. Carlos, would you please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's not necessary, but thank you very much. Carlos Braceras, Executive Director, Utah Department of Transportation, and we'll probably make up more than half the room, so we'll go quickly.
Steve Marshall, Deputy Director.
Terry Newell, Deputy Director.
Heather
Marshall, Commissioner.
Jason Davis, Operations.
Chris Peterson, Region 1. Rob Clayton, Region 3.
Dean Cox, Washington County.
Not a UDOT employee. Yes.
Yes.
Jimmy?
Jim Holtouts, UDOT Internal Audit.
Shane Young, UDOT Internal Audit. Ryan Adams, Region 2.
Lisa Wilson, Region 2.
I'm Arnold, Director of Program Planning. I'm Bob Kelly, I'm State Coordinator.
Carmen Slomick, Structures and Project Development.
I'm Charles Stormoff, Right of Way.
Reporters of Region 4.
Dick Saunders, Region 1,
David Elder, Region 1.
Nathan Peterson, Region 1, Program Manager. Aaron Shovel, Geotech Central.
Travis Jones, Structure. Chairman, I think that's... Oh, sorry.
Grant Potter, UDOT Communications.
Zach with me, UDOT Communications.
Okay, thank you. And welcome, Senator Hilliard.
Sorry, I'm late. I only stayed just a few minutes. I got an emergency a little bit. So.
Okay. And we will also remind everybody that this proceeding was broadcast in youtube.com/Utah DOT. Thank you. So shall we give the Senator a few minutes, please? Senator, would you please come forward? And introduce yourselves always and speak directly to the microphone, please.
Bye, Carlos.
Yes.
Well, I guess say welcome to Cache Valley, but more importantly, welcome to Smithfield. This is my hometown. That's where I grew up.
And I remember the days the building right here was called Fort Courage. And it was torn down to build this beautiful building. We jokingly called it the 6th Ward, because there were 4 LDS wards. This was actually a pool hall, McCracken's. So I tell you that. I come here really appreciating the great work you people do. You know, I know it's a very challenging thing. We try in the legislature to get you as much money as we can because we know how well you spend it. I don't know if people are really aware of the fact that when the federal money was available through the bailout, Utah, I understand, was the first state to take the money and actually apply it immediately as requested. The reason is because our planning is done so well out ahead that we know if you give us an extra $20 million, Carl, so you can tell us exactly where it's going to go because you do that kind of planning and work. And I think you really do us a great job and great service. I'm glad of that. I haven't talked to anyone, so what I'm telling you is just going to be my reflection of someone who's grown up here in this beautiful valley, and I love it so much, and I'm glad always to be here. My concerns on transportation really get to be threefold, or fourfold. Number one is Logan City. I was to a function last night at a place called the Riverwoods on the south end of town, and the group that I was speaking to had originally planned to have their activity at what we call Copper Mill on the north. And it took many of the people about 20 minutes to get from the north end of Logan to the south end of Logan at about 6 o'clock last night because of the traffic. Now, I know very clearly you cannot build yourself out of the problem. We could put a lot of money in and make 4-lane highways and 8-lane highways and all of that between Smithfield and Logan, and we just fill it up. So we've got to have some ways of getting that, taking the pressure off. I mean, I need to learn that I don't just jump in my car and drive downtown or drive wherever I want. I need to learn to plan and do better. And that's certainly, we have a problem of air quality in this valley because of the way the valley is shaped. And so I think we need, as part of your job, and I think we need to step forward and help you on ways that we can reduce the congestion. And so I think that's an important part. As you look at Logan, the more people I think we can get on 10th West to take them off of Main Street, the better off we're going to be. I don't know really how we're going to solve the problem of Highway 30 or the Valley View coming in and making that straight. I know we've tried to talk about that. My other areas deal really with the access to Logan and exit of Logan. Having lived in the valley all my life and being used to driving in snow, I don't really mind Sardine Canyon. I think I've learned how to drive that, and I know when I tell people that since you put that barrier up in the canyon, you've cut deaths on that canyon by 94%. And I think that's a factor that we in the valley need to understand. I know there was a lot of controversy when you put it up about that, but I don't think I can recall a time that I've had trouble getting through the canyon. I know there's been accidents and they've been able to, but we always use Valley View. So you'd be complimented on that. But I'll tell you one thing I see every time I drive from Logan to Salt Lake and by that road between Logan and Wellsville. I see those homes that people come right directly on the road. I see there's more lights going in. You know, obviously have to have some, but boy, we need to plan ahead and have byways so that those homeowners, if they build that new complex, I know they'll never touch Dr. Pierce's home. Vic Sanders will never let you do that, being a Cache Valley boy himself. But I think we need to be planning ahead so we can have some access roads so we don't have so much traffic coming on that road. Because quite frankly, if you're shipping in Cache Valley and then your big trucks have to stop for stoplight after stoplight after stoplight, that's not a good thing. It's going to impact us. So now's the time to do it, and I hope it's not too late. On Valley View, feel the same thing on Valley View. That's got to be a 4-lane highway, and I understand the problem on warrants and things you're trying to do there, but I'll just take you back to a story. We had no stoplight at 18th North. There used to be a Kmart. It's been closed now, but Jack's Tires there now in that intersection. And we used to average a car death there about once a month. And the trouble was, most of the deaths were from Idaho. People come down, were not aware of that intersection. And I remember meeting with UDOT at the time and said, for heaven's sakes, put a stoplight in that place. That's really a dangerous place. They came back and said, we can't, Senator, because the warrants don't justify it. And I said, I'll make you a deal. The county will put up this stoplight, and you come back in 6 months and take your warrants. Because people in the valley who are aware of that intersection avoid it. It's the people who don't know about it who get caught in that traffic that cause the problem. Well, they came back and said, we can't do that because our lawyers, were they? Our lawyers tell us that if we don't follow the federal guidelines, then there's some potential liability to the state. But we finally got it in there. But I just think the same thing on that highway going west. You know, I know full well that we have a lot of people in Cache Valley who drive to Box Elder County to work at Nucor, Auto Leave, wherever the places they have out to work here. A lot of people drive that road. And again, I drive that road occasionally when the canyon's blocked. But when that canyon gets blocked, that's really our only access. And if you really want to keep the valley beautiful like it is, you need to have a highway wide enough that bikes can use it, that we do. We have a lot of times in the summer, you're up here, different groups will have bike rides around the valley. It's a beautiful place to do it. And if you want to know what really rural Utah should look like, go to western Idaho. Go up to Dayton. Go to Preston. Go west of Preston to Preston. Go to Weston and Dayton in those areas, and you'll see some beautiful farm country. And I think we're losing a lot of that here in Cache Valley, in the Utah portion of it. But I think that's really important, those two roads. I think the other thing I'm going to talk about, now I'm speaking about my hat representing Rich County. They really would like to have a 4-lane highway. And I remember a conversation I had with Governor Levitt. We'll never have a full 4-lane highway through Logan Canyon like we do Sardine. The cost, the scenic beauty, but I think wherever you can expand that road into passing lanes, you really need to do it. I was at Bear Lake the other day for a meeting with the State Wildlife Department, and we were talking about the Bear Lake Marine and some of the things. And as we were coming in after riding to the North Beach and coming back into the marina there, we were flagged down by a boat, and the man in the boat had a heart attack. And the family were trying to get some help for this man. And I don't know if you know Sim Weston, he's the county commissioner over in Rich County. Big guy, cowboy boots, Levi's, cowboy hat. He jumped from our boat into the other boat to give first aid. And I was told he's probably one of the best paramedics in the county over there. But he was helping. We called, and I was astounded to find out that it's faster to call a helicopter from Ogden to come and get them than to drive down through Logan Canyon to take him to Logan Hospital. Now, you know, you can't fix that completely. I mean, I acknowledge that immediately, but I think always ought to be keeping in your mind, are there places in the Logan Canyon where we can legitimately make passing lanes to make it a little bit easier for people to get through? So other than spend a lot of money, and I give Carlos everything he ever asked for, so it's really going to be easy. You remember that. But I apologize, I can't stay with you much longer, but welcome to Cache Valley, and particularly welcome to Smithfield. And I'm glad people find out where it is. It's a great place, and if you get tired today and you want to do something, just go up Smithfield Canyon and go fishing. Now don't keep anything you catch, but it's a beautiful place to go in the evening, and a lot of people here enjoy that. Thanks.
Well, Senator, I was telling some people earlier this morning that one of the fondest memories I have of this location is when we broke ground to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes through Smithfield. And at that time, Governor Walker came up and did that and put her in a backhoe. And trained her how to use the backhoe, and she does the scoop with the backhoe, and we all clap. And everyone else kind of turns and walks away, and she yells, "No, no, I'm not done. That was a wimpy scoop." And we had her start giving her off the backhoe.
Well, that reminds me of an issue we did for them, because if you go to Richmond, this was actually in Richmond, you go to Richmond, you go up on the crest of the hill and go down. And we did not have a stoplight there. And I know Mayor Hall of Richmond contacted me and said, it's really dangerous. Not a problem if you're coming from the east and you want to go north, you can make a right-hand turn. But it's really a hard intersection because it's hard to see down. I know you lowered that a little bit, but we were finally able to get a light on by going to that school there and finding all the kids who lived west of that highway, and then making the case that they had to have some way to cross over that highway to go east and then walk and then go north to their school. So some of those things, and I think it's really important to appreciate Wayne. Wayne and I have talked a number of times. He's not a person who sits back and enjoys coming to meetings. He really does his job, and I appreciate working with Wayne. He does a great job representing, I think, northern Utah. Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you. Well. We sure appreciate you, Senator, every way. Thank you, thank you.
Just tell my wife, she'll be glad.
I'd be happy. In fact, I have told her that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You got to
sir.
respond to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from Senator? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to leave, I'm sorry.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Senator.
Well, at this time, I would like to also recognize our federal partner, Ivan Marrero, who will have an opportunity to speak to us later. Mayor Barnes, would you would please come forward and take 2 minutes and welcome us to your community?
Sit here.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Where am I comfortable? Well, okay, I'll sit down. Chairman Azadi and the commissioners, welcome to Smithfield. We are a great city. This is not my hometown, but I call it home. I've been here for 35 years, and Salt Lake City is where I was born and grew up, on the east side in Canyon Rim.
Yeah.
And, we have a beautiful cemetery, Commissioner Kramer.
It was tough getting a spot in Mentor, I tell you. They're dying to get
Our
in.
cemetery is 1,000 times prettier than that. Smithfield is a great little city. It's a well-managed city, and
Good kid.
we have our issues. We had a grueling time last Wednesday with our truth in taxation. 150 people in this room and standing outside.
Wow.
But we got through it, and we have a beautiful, I don't know if you toured our beautiful skate park. Drive by that yesterday?
No.
Nope. Okay, so before you leave town, we had our grand opening on last Saturday. We have a little skate park out here by our splash pad, 100 North, 100 West, right here in town, Central Park. And it's being well used by the youth of our community and all the surrounding communities as well. So, don't know what else to say other than have a good time while you're here. Cache County is a beautiful place, and Smithfield is one of those cities. We are a full-service city. We offer all of the services that Logan City offers. We're the only city in the valley that can say that. We're right up there with Logan as far as services go. So
What is your population, Mayor?
it's 12, or right under 12,000.
Beautiful.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for using our building and our new chamber room here. Appreciate you guys coming.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I have one thing I'd like to say is, have you guys got a plan? You know, I'm a fan of Southern Utah. I go down there and hike a lot. I don't use motorized vehicles. I still go by foot. And there's a bottleneck in Spanish Fork Canyon. I was in the biggest traffic jam ever coming home on a holiday weekend, coming down that canyon. I've never seen anything like it. So it's 4 lanes or 2 lanes narrowing down to 1. And on a holiday weekend, that is the worst traffic bottleneck jam I've ever seen. So I don't know if you have plans for that or not.
No, we do.
Okay.
Thank you for observation, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for hospitality.
For your service. Thank you.
Okay, Nathan, you're up.
Thank you, Commission, and on behalf of Region 1, welcome to Smithfield City in beautiful Cache County, and the valley up here. It's beautiful this time of year, and we hope that you can enjoy your afternoon up here. So, once again, I have the fine opportunity to showcase some of the hard work of the men and women of Region 1 and showcase some of the projects up in this area. And so, we'll spend a lot of time talking about Main Street because, as the Senator said, we do have some congestion issues there. But first, I'd like to discuss SR 30, the widening of SR 30, which will be one of the larger projects that we have up in the area. It's currently funded at about $45 million with the TIF program, and we are currently in the environmental phase. We're anticipating that we'll be able to have a signed document here shortly within the next couple of months, and then we'll be able to begin design. We're slated for construction and for the widening of SR 30 in the year of 2021. So this will be a great project, fun project to work on, and it will improve operations and mobility on the west side of the valley. So, second, you may have seen on the tour yesterday was the intersection, our new intersection at 10th West and US 91. We did some realignment of the right-hand turn onto 91, and it's a beautiful intersection with a new signal, and we've designed it so that we can have an additional fourth leg as development occurs on the east side of 91. It's practically complete now, but it'll be finalized this fall, and it's operating now. So, as the Senator said, Main Street's a big concern for the region, and this study, the $60,000 project, may not be our largest project up in the area, but it's by far one of the more important projects that we have in the area. We're going to once again look at Main Street with the objectives of improving safety along Main Street, mobility, access, and to see how we can analyze and utilize local streets along with the state highway to increase that through traffic through Logan. We're in the beginning phases of this study, and we hope to have a report for the Commission in the future. And I'm sure that will spawn many projects from this study, which will help improve the situation along Main Street. Along with Main Street, another north-south corridor which has been approved over the years has been 10th and, 100 East and 200 East. Currently, we have a phase on the north end up by the new high school between 2200 North and 300 North, which we're currently finishing the construction on, programmed at $9.6 million. And this has been an ongoing process to help improve this corridor. And the idea there is to help alleviate some of the traffic off of US 91. So very happy for these projects. A lot of these projects are funded through the CMPO and have federal aid on them, and we as a region oversee that and help aid in the construction of. This one we call Ted's Corner. It's 3200 South. Ted's Corner is a gas station down there on the south end of the valley, just as you come into Logan City. We have a safety project. So what we have out there is we have high speeds, we have a skewed intersection, and 3200 South feeds the majority of the east side, like Nibley City. So we have a lot of residents from Nibley City trying to access the highway here. So we have a safety concern, and we have a current funded project at $2.8 million where we will square up the intersection and help improve safety on 91. So very exciting project. It's been a challenging project, but one that's well received, and that we're anticipating construction possibly next year.
Plus, we're going to plan for a signal there too.
Yes. Yes, the intersection will be signalized. And on the topic of signals, down there at the Y, this is the south end of Logan, where SR 165 and US 91 meet down there by Macy's. We're upgrading our signal there, and we're noting this because the major change at this intersection is that currently there's a free right, more or less, from Main Street to continue out 91. What we're doing there is, as we place in this new infrastructure, this new signal, is that it'll be pedestrian activated. So historically, where we've had free travel through that intersection for that movement, now when there's pedestrian, it'll activate the signal. So we'll have to do a large public involvement effort to go out and notify everyone that this is coming, and this is scheduled to be complete this fall. So
I think I don't know if this is true or not, but it looks like from the demolition that's going on the east side, we're going to get some big new structures there, possibly a new hotel, so that that pedestrian crossing will become even more important for people wanting to get one side or the other.
Exactly. As we've seen Walmart go down there and the Macy's move and a few of those businesses pop up along with the hotel, we've noticed that there's been an increase in pedestrian traffic at this intersection. And it's historically been a difficult intersection for pedestrians to navigate through, so this is the efforts to help improve that mobility for our pedestrians. Once again, on Main Street, we have two projects programmed on Main Street, one which will be constructed next year through our preservation and pavement rehabilitation program, funded at $4 million. It's basically a 2-inch mill and fill. And the design life on that project is 5 years. And the idea behind this is that in 2023, we have a pavement reconstruction project which is programmed, where we will be able to replace the pavement. A lot of effort needs to go into coordination prior to that. We're currently in discussions with Logan City. They have a lot of utilities which they'd like to replace at that time, and we will coordinate and partner with them for sure, because it's a great opportunity for them to get in there and do some of that utility work before we go and place a nice new pavement, and so it becomes a win-win for both of us. So we're very excited about this project and very grateful for those funds. Logan Smithfield, you drove through this on your way into Smithfield today. Beautiful pavement rehabilitation project with a lot of new signals. New signals at 3100 North and 1600 North. It's nearing completion, and it was programmed at $8.2 million. Up and coming projects, these are some of our smaller projects in the area, but they are by far, I mean, they're definitely worth noting. Wellsville to Mendon, we have a drainage issue over there. We've had water cross the road. We have $1 million programmed out of our Transportation Solutions Fund to go out there and improve drainage along SR 23 in the Mendon area. So Commissioner Kramer can have his family visit him in the far future, I hope.
He's worried about the drainage.
But the view's incredible.
Float in there.
Logan, in Logan, we have turn lanes at South Fork Hardware in the Big 5 area, 4th North in Logan Pavement Rehabilitation Project. We have safety pullouts scheduled up in Logan Canyon. Currently working with the Forest Service to secure that right-of-way, which we're working on, and once we have that right-of-way, we can go out and advertise that project. Right-hand fork at Tony Grove, another Purple Book or pavement rehabilitation project, which is scheduled for next year. We're looking to advertise that in the next month. Trenton to Lewis guardrail end sections. Some of these older structures over like the Bear River have some guardrail that needs some updating, that has the turn downs, and we'll look to improve those crash cushions for safety. And then some of our smaller projects, which are not necessarily auto related, but for our pedestrians and bikes, our TAP projects, which are funding pass-through projects, which give us a great opportunity to partner with the local jurisdictions like Nibley and Hiram, Millville, River Heights, and Logan. These projects are helped to improve bike paths, sidewalks, pedestrian features, and bike lanes. So a great program, and as you can see, the region is partnering with a lot of the jurisdictions up in Cache County for these types of projects.
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask Nathan a quick question?
Yes.
I appreciate the updates. Will the Logan Canyon slow vehicle pullouts, will that be sufficient to meet what the senator's issuing, or is it even a bigger problem than we think?
It's a bit, well, these are more strategic safety locations up by the summit. Sometimes you'll be behind a large truck. It's an opportunity for that truck to pull over to allow the queue, the autos behind it to pass. Yeah. We have been looking within the region on the planning end of doing a passing lane up in Logan Canyon. Currently, we have not identified the funding for it, but we're in those efforts. We're looking to see how strategically we can look at that project and see how it would rank. So.
Okay, good to have that response.
A lot of needs out there.
That'll help Logan Canyon.
Yes.
But you also need to have some signs firmly inviting slow vehicles to use it.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely true.
It's just, that's excellent.
And my last slide, I'm going to leave Cache County and jump over to Rich County, but it is a significant project to discuss because a lot of people in Cache County go over to Bear Lake, and we appreciate once again the recreational hotspot funding. And as you can see, we are planning several projects in the Bear Lake area. The most important project being the Marina Access Road, just over $4.8 million. We will begin design on that in 2020, and we can begin construction in 2021. Of course, there's a lot of coordination that can happen with state parks, but this project can also be a standalone project if needed. Otherwise, we would coordinate with any possible other project state parks may or may not have in the area. So, along with the access road to the marina, we have a center median down by the KOA, that's the commercial node turn lanes, Buttercup turn lanes at Buttercup, which is currently being improved by the county, and then the intersection in Garden City itself, US 89 and SR 30, and we'll look at lots of different options of how to improve that intersection. Some challenges there is the tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic as they go get their raspberry shakes. So it's something that we need to look at, and it is important for us to look at. So that being said, I'd like to ask the commission if there's any questions.
Any questions from Nathan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Yeah.
As you can see, the mayor, there are a lot of attention getting paid to your communities all the way from south to north and even the county. So we have not forgotten you. Thank you. Okay, Brian Adams is going to report on the I-80 Wildlife Bridge update. Is it done yet?
We're working on it.
They're not reading the signs like we're like,
But you kind of have to hang on.
Yeah.
There's issues like that. So there's those 4 regions, and he's the director for the Salt Lake. Region 2.
Yeah.
Good guy. So
Well,
right on the snow.
good morning, commissioners. Been asked to come and give an update on the wildlife bridge that we're building up, Parley's Canyon. Commissioner Holbrook she knows how much I love to give presentations, so thanks, Meg. So anyway, we do appreciate the opportunity to come and give a little update on this. I want to start out by just kind of maybe refreshing everybody on why we're building the bridge and kind of the need behind this structure, because it's quite the structure. It's probably, I don't think we've built anything quite like this in the state. We're really excited about it, but I mean, we've got on up I-80 through Parley's Canyon, we have an ADT of almost 61,000 vehicles.
Explain ADT.
That's our average daily traffic through the area. It's a lot of vehicles, and a big majority of the vehicles are large semis as well. So before we started this project, we had 106 hits through this area over a 2-year period, and we're talking moose, elk, deer, so large animals, and with the significant size of the animals and that amount of traffic and vehicle traffic, we felt like we really needed to take a look at this area and see what we could do to address that safety problem. So we've been working hand in hand with our partners at DWR, as well as we have a real active community, wildlife community up there. Save People, Save Wildlife. They've been invited to all of our meetings, sat in the same room with us, and to try to figure out what the solutions are up through this area. And we've chosen to build this bridge right at the top of the summit. We relied on our partners with DWR that really understood the migration patterns that we have through this area, and this was the recommendation where we placed the structure right at the top of the summit. We've also, as we went through our design, the recommendation is, the wider the better for the structure, so that it doesn't feel like, the animals don't feel like they're being pinched off. So we actually are building this bridge 50 feet wide, which is, a significant structure. And also, the goal was to try, as you can see by the picture, to try to funnel the wildlife to the bridge, and then make as kind of a natural bottom as possible. So this is a 3D rendering of what it's going to look like. Pretty impressive. So we have. Meg asked me about, have we seen any reduction in the hits so far? I think we're a little bit too early to have an actual number, but just as we watch, because we put fence up all the way from Jeremy Ranch up over to the summit, and then we've tied into the existing wildlife fence just down canyon. So just that alone, we feel like that we're definitely seeing significant decreases in hits, but we don't have the numbers yet to support it. So I don't know if you can see, if you look at the picture to the right here is a large bull elk. So we think we've hit the spot as far as where they're wanting to try to cross, because we've got a bull elk right now trying to cross where we're building the buttons.
They're reading the signs.
They're reading it. For sure.
It's not an
They're
afterthought.
inspecting it to make sure they want to cross.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Why did deer cross the road? Yeah.
So, along with the bridge, we're also installing a lot of, wildlife safety improvements as well. I mentioned before, we're installing the fence all the way from Jeremy up over the top and tying into the existing fence just down canyon, and that's on both sides. We're installing wildlife escape ramps along the stretch as well. And then we're going to go ahead and install some flashing warning lights on the highway, just warning people that there is a possibility of animals in the area. And then we're going to be installing cattle guards at all of the interchanges to try to stop the animals from getting out on I-80.
What kind of cattle guards are you going to put there? You're going to paint stripes on the road, or you're going to put an actual cattle guard in?
We're going to put actual cattle guards, the double cattle guards, yeah.
Okay.
They believe in the stripes?
Mm-hmm. They do. It fools some of them. Yeah, they do. It's cheaper, too.
Yeah, we're talking elk and moose.
Brian, is there any idea how many places across the state we do have wildlife safety improvements? I was in Kanab recently down there, and the fence, there's been some issues with that as well, but it sure makes a great difference. And
We have tunnels.
we have a ton of these around the state.
Yeah, probably Rick could answer that, but we've got a lot down in southern Utah on I-15. We've got some tunnels. We've actually got a overpass as well right down by here.
Right.
Similar side.
Yeah, and they've been successful to date down there, so we're hoping that this.
It's worth doing.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, it is. Now, you want to mention that this is modeled after a very successful wildlife bridge in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we looked at, again, working with DWR, we looked at all kinds of different types of structures, and looked across the country as well as, out of the country as far as what works and in different locations, and we modeled this one after that location that Meg mentioned. So we feel like we're gonna be successful with this. DWR figures that it'll probably take a couple of years before the animals really get used to it and realize that that's the location where they can cross. But
looks like a good demarcation between Salt Lake and Summit County too.
it is right on the line.
And I mean that in the very nicest terms. You know, Brian, what, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, we had to close Parley's periodically at night, and I got a lot of calls one night from some owners near Guardsman's Pass. You want to talk about what happened up there with trucks?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we had some closures to set these beams that you can see on these pictures. We had to close. We did eastbound first, and then we came back and did the westbound direction. But when we're swinging those large beams, we have to close the roadway to do that. So we had some closures overnight. We know the sensitivity of this area, so we did a crazy amount of public involvement as far as we sent out notices to the trucking communities. We had all the truckers stop at the port of entries, and the folks at the port of entries was telling them the detours for this closure. We also had our ATMS signs all the way along the corridor, start all the way from the Wyoming border, telling them that it was closed to use another detour. I think this was the first time that we even engaged some of our social media, as well as reaching out to like Waze and Google Maps to be able to let them know that it shows up on those apps. But the first night we thought we had it all, taken care of, and we had two police officers that was helping us, try to deal with some of the stragglers as we went through. Obviously, we didn't have enough of the patrol for the different intersections, and we had one truck that took a detour through Park City, up over the top, trying to get through Guardsman. I don't know how he made it as far as he did. He hit a couple power lines, drove over through a roundabout, and ended up going up on the top and getting jackknifed.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. So we had a lot of feedback from the communities, from Park City, rightfully so, right? How do we stop this from happening? So the next night, we worked with Park City, Summit County, got more police officers up there, as well as we sent our IMTs up and stationed them at all of the interchanges and intersections, so that if an errant truck did get through, we could tell them, please, take another route. The funny thing about it is the next day we engaged IMT to say, how did it work? Did everything go well? What did we learn from this? And through the discussion, they said it was amazing how many trucks actually came through that they were stopping and having conversations with. And they said that probably 80% of the folks that they stopped and talked to couldn't speak English. So we feel that that was probably a lot of the problem, all the way through, is that they're not being able to see the signs, understand that we were having closures. So.
No, and that's also the reason why we don't have snow plows in Guardsman's Pass. It's too dangerous.
It's dangerous.
If a semi can't get through, a big snow plow can't do the curves.
Closes past bad enough in the summer.
But, so, I hate to bring this up, but I will. So on social media and everything else, are we going to do it in 2 languages from now on, or what?
We're going to look into that to try to figure out what to do.
I know, speaking just purely for a personal thing, let's just say Summit County is a very active community about the contact. And I was very surprised at that. That's the one thing I never would have expected, that over the majority of truckers could not read our signs or the communications. That was a surprise to me.
We were surprised as well. But we, you know, I think we learned a lot through here, and we just, we also learned the value of having our IMTs out there to help us. So I think in the future we'll definitely get those folks more engaged as well. So.
Does the state or do any of the other states require English proficiency to get a CDL?
I don't know the answer to that.
Don't know.
Seems like that would almost be a good idea.
So CDL is a national, because they're crossing state boundaries. So it's not something that the state of Utah would put in place requiring proficiency because it's a national type of a license. So it would have to be
That'd be federal.
carriers.
Yeah.
So maybe having to over that.
Well, that's a significant safety issue, seems to me, and maybe we ought to talk to our delegation and see if we get something going to sponsor it. I mean, you want to be hospitable, but there are lives at stake in a situation like this. Anyway, that's my 2 bits.
So the last piece of information, just want to give you an update on the schedule of where we're at. So we're scheduled to have all of our wildlife improvements completed this fall. Actually, the whole project, including the passing lanes and everything, we're scheduled to be done this November. So everything's on track to complete on time. But some of the key things as far with the bridge that we're excited to kind of watch from here on out, we did get all the beams set. Last couple of weeks, we've actually got the deck panels placed on the structure, so that's the floor of the bridge has all been installed. And first part of September, they'll be starting to work on the parapets, put the fencing up, and then we'll be starting the landscaping over the top, you know, in September, you know, and then again scheduled to open up in November. So we're excited, you know, that it's going to be completed, and we're really anxious to see how well that it does work in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Good work.
Thank you.
So how are you going to notify the moose and deer to ribbon cutting is that day and that they're open for the business?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have a
In 2
question.
languages. Please, go ahead.
How high does the wildlife fencing have to be effective?
Well, the fencing that we're putting up is 8 feet tall, and that's kind of our standard.
So those nimble little deer aren't going to be doing any jumping off the bridge. And then my second question, could you just remind us the cost of this project?
So we've got $5 million that were allocated just for wildlife safety improvements. The total cost of the paving project, that was around 30 million, I think, total with the passing lane. But the features, the dollar amount for the features of the wildlife safety was about $5 million.
And the commission moved that money years ago along with the fencing, and then we did a public-private partnership with Park City on the fencing.
Great, thank you.
But a moose, once in a while, a moose gets over. God, you know, gotta admire them for that, but they can get over the fence.
They're like a buffalo, they go wherever they want.
As long as it's not in front of me. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
So the maintenance and operation will be by the local people, or the UDOT is in charge of the maintenance?
We'll be in charge of it.
No, we'll get
Okay. Any more questions from Brian?
good point.
Thank you. Okay, item number 4 on the agenda is public comments, and we have Mayor Sean Blum to introduce and talk about the US 89, and then we'll follow with the Commissioner Dean Fox. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for letting us come and present to you this morning on something that's so important to us. I'm here with, oh, there we go, with a support group consisting of Davis County Commissioner Brett Milburn, Davis County Planner Barry Burton, Mark Benigni from Urban Pathways, David Larson, who is South Weber City Manager, and of course my husband Darren Schoblin came with me as well. So
moral support?
He's the moral support, yes. So appreciate you letting us talk about something that's very important to us, and that's the funding for the US 89 Weber River bridges. I wanted to give you a visual of what these bridges look like. This is the west side of these bridges, and you can see that they're kind of wearing down, getting a little dilapidated. So I wanted to show you the area where this is located. This green line is the South Weber City border, and then we have here US 89, I-84. Here's the I-84 interchange, and this is where the Weber River bridges are located, and they're the biggest obstacle to a trail system that we're trying to complete, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So bottom line is UDOT is commencing construction on the US 89 Farmington to I-84 project next summer, which I'm sure you're all very aware of. They've anticipated widening the Weber River bridges with this project. It's been part of the project from the beginning. UDOT Structures Department has recommended that these bridges be replaced. They're old, they're dilapidated. UDOT has committed to lengthening these bridges to accommodate a trail underneath when the bridges are replaced. That is part of the Wasatch Front Regional Council Regional Transportation, what's it called? Regional Transportation. What?
Long range plan?
Yeah, long range plan and the transportation improvement plan, that's correct. And so the problem is that UDOT doesn't have the full funding needed for the scope of the work identified in the state environmental study, and the fate of these bridges is unknown. Why do we need these bridges replaced? They will connect major regional trail networks. The Bonneville shoreline in Davis County to the Bonneville shoreline in Weber County. The Bonneville shoreline connects to the Weber River Trail, or it will, which is part of the Centennial Trail that includes the Weber and Ogden River Trails to circumnavigate the Ogden City area. It will improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety, facilitate active transportation to reduce motor vehicle use, grow economic development in these areas, and it supports Governor Herbert's recently announced goal of 1,000 miles of family-friendly bicycle trails and paths as part of Utah Life Elevated 2020. So here is the trail system. I'd like to show you the yellow lines indicate the trails that are already in place, and this one connects to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail in Weber County. This one is the Weber River Trail, and this one down here is the Bonneville Shoreline in Davis County. These red lines are our the future trail system, and as you can see, they kind of hook up right here at this point, which is close to the I-84 bridge and the US 89 bridge. The I-84 bridge we've already figured out is long enough and high enough to accommodate a trail underneath, and so we're not concerned about getting funds for that. But the I-89 bridge, or the US 89 bridge, is the problem and our biggest hurdle in getting these trails completed. I wanted to show you a cross-section. Our city engineer put this together to show what the trail would look like underneath these bridges, and as you can see, it's concrete so that when the spring runoff comes, it will wash over the trail but then recede and not take the trail with it. So the cost estimation is about $7.25 million to replace these two bridges, north and southbound US 89 bridges. That's from Horrocks Engineering, and been confirmed by UDOT for a rough estimation of what it would cost to replace these bridges. Just a couple more things I wanted to say is that these bridges have always been part of this project, the US 89 Farmington to I-84 project that will begin next summer. Of course, they were only meant to be scabbed and not replaced, but now is the best time to go ahead and replace those bridges with this project, and that's what we're asking. It is possible that there will be funding by the time this project commences next summer for these bridges, but we don't know that, and right now UDOT does not have that money, and we don't want to wait till the last minute and then be disappointed and find out that it's not going to happen. So we want to be proactive about this. So what we're asking of the Utah Transportation Commission is to ensure that funding will be earmarked to complete the replacement of these bridges with the US 89 Farmington to I-84 project that begins next summer. And I'll refer you to your handout. It shows on that handout a lot of the things that we are doing to help do our part to get these trails connected as well. We don't just expect handouts, so we will definitely be doing our part. You saw, I handed Commissioner Zanotti it's like a letter of support from the Davis County COG. You should have also received letters from Senator Stuart Adams, Senator Ann Milner, also the Weber County Commissioners and Davis County Commissioners. You should have received those as well, and there will be more coming. So a lot of support for this project, and we hope that you will find the funds to be able to complete it with this upcoming project next summer. So are there any questions? Yes.
Well, so we're looking at this handout. Yeah. And I see starred places on I-84, but I don't see what you're talking about on 89, US 89, for where the bridges are. Are they below the picture?
No, the bridge is on the picture there. It's, let me see if I can go back and find it on the map here. So here's US 89 right here. Here is the bridge. This is where the bridge is that crosses the Weber River. You can see this trail follows the river, and that's where the bridges are located right there.
Okay, thank you.
So yes.
I didn't see any place where it said how many people, one, are now using these trails, and how many do you project to use these trails on the new bridges?
Well, that's a good question. You don't know, Marta, do you? How many use that trail?
Mark Benigni from Weber Pathways.
Come on up. You got YouTube.
Mark Benigni from Weber Pathways. Right now they're user-created trails, so they're not really, fishermen have been using it to access the river. There's a trailhead near that location called Fisherman's Point. We anticipate that we'll get a lot more attraction to this area. The land just north of 84 was purchased by Weber Pathways with the help of Leroy McAllister funding. Mm-hmm. And we have funding to rehabilitate that area and restore the habitat. So to encourage bluehead sucker, which is a fish on the watch list, and Bonneville cutthroat trout, another fish on the watch list. And so we anticipate more traffic from recreational use, but also we only have 4 parcels of land to connect the Weber River Parkway to this area. And with the congestion that we anticipate in this location, there are people now that commute to Ogden City by bicycle from South Weber on the pathway. Right now, we anticipate more use. So actual counts now, there aren't any just because there's not a defined trail, but we believe there's a latent demand that will promote additional use in this area, especially as traffic starts being congested after the 89 expansion is complete.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's a big hot button.
We just completed in South Weber Parks and Rec survey, and by far, way at the top of priorities for our city was trails, and we have none in South Weber City. As you can see, we're the missing link for this major regional trail system. Any other questions?
Any questions?
What would be the cost of the bridge replacement?
Yeah, what would the cost? We
So
know
7.25 million is the rough estimate given to us. So to scab the bridges, which was already in the plans, would be, I hear, about 60% of what it would cost to replace those bridges. So it's not a whole lot more, and you're getting a better product.
I appreciate your energy and your spirit of cooperation with all entities. Thank you,
All right,
Mayor.
thank you.
Very well done, Mayor.
Thank you.
Carmen, would you like to give us some little update about the status of those bridges, or anyone, or Shane
I can do
maybe?
it, yeah, sure.
Please.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Shane Marshall, Deputy Director. So we were very, very early in this project stage. We just completed the environmental document. We're at a very high level of the design, trying to figure out what the scope of the entire project really will be with giving our $275 million budget. There's no doubt that bridge needs to be widened. There's no doubt. It has to be widened, and if we have committed that if we reconstruct it, it will be lengthened. We just don't have enough data yet to make that determination. Okay. It is good to hear from the community that there is a very large plan, and they've been planning for this for a long time, and that when we get to this location, that will factor in the decision on whether to reconstruct or widen. Structures has preliminarily said it needs to be taken out, and so therefore it would be lengthened if it gets taken out. But we're very early. We will more than likely need to come back at some point and update you on this. The project is at, like I said, $275 million, but that's again a rough estimate on a project that we just barely got out of the environmental document phase. So we'll keep this in mind. It will play a factor on our decision, and we will come back and inform the Commission.
Shane, you're just now bringing on an engineering company to start this.
Yeah, we just signed a contract with an engineering company last week to start the design, so we just have some more work to do before we can definitively make a decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Melbourne, would you like to speak about this project?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. Brett Melbourne, Davis County Commissioner, and also wear a number of other hats that I get to interact with each of you in different capacities. One is Vice Chair of Wasatch Front Regional Council, and also my involvement with UTA, the transit agency. But here today, speaking in support of this particular project, and as pointed out, I guess the key thing here is taking advantage of the opportunity that we have before us. And it kind of reminds me of, I'm doing some home remodeling at the moment. And as I'm doing the project and whatnot, and I have walls opened up and things of that nature, and it's like, well, I'm better to do a little additional work and spend a little additional now than having to come back later when I have cobbled together the necessary funds and then take half the project down and ruin some of the work that I've done before, to kind of let that go to waste. So as the mayor pointed out, rough estimates show that this is about just doing the existing work and widening to accommodate is about 60% of what the new bridge would cost. So the other key point, I think here, we talked a lot about the trail system right within the area of South Weaver, but as you can see, there's a major disconnect between a major north-south trail, and that's the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, which is extremely important for both Weaver and Davis counties. That trail system is well known, well used, and not only for these two counties, but is something that sets the state of Utah apart and Wasatch Front apart, is the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. So just add our support. Mayor mentioned that Davis County Commissioners had submitted a letter, and we sent that via email, but I brought you a hard copy, if I could.
Thank you.
Let you have that. And while I'm here, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and express appreciation to UDOT, and all the way from Carlos to Shane, other members of the team. Chris Peterson, where'd he go? He's back here.
He's out working somewhere.
Randy Jeffries, of course, a lot of things happening particularly in Davis County when it comes to UDOT. This major project, Highway 89, of course, we're all excited about finally moving forward with West Davis Corridor and the other variety of projects that we have. And really appreciate all the work and the relationship that we have and the good spirit of cooperation. And also to each one of you and your support for things that we have going on in Davis County. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
May I just add what a pleasure it is to work with the Commissioner and his can-do attitude on so many different areas. It's just, Utah, we really do cooperate. I've been back in D.C. recently, and it's just so refreshing to have the kind of leadership we get when we return to Utah. So thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Dean Cox, who has traveled, what, 1.5 days you said to get over?
You know, I got to drive from one end of the state to the other, and the common denominator on that entire drive was beautiful roads. And I finished a vacation recently with my wife. We went to South Dakota and saw Mount Rushmore and other areas. So we traveled in Colorado, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and Utah. And there's not a single state in those 2,700 miles of driving that we did that has better roads than our state in the state of Utah. And so thank you, each of you, for your dedication and commitment and the time that you put into this. And I'd also like to thank Carlos and Shane, especially staff in Region 4, Rick Torgerson and his group down there treat us very, very well. So just to tell you where Washington County is, the Spanish Fork is southern Utah. I'm thinking that Washington County must be extreme southern Utah. And it's a wonderful place, and we appreciate all of the help that you've extended to us as we're working on a major road project that will benefit Washington County. And as you're well aware, it is the fastest growing metro area in the United States. And so to brief you up on what we're doing just a little bit, we have a 63,000 acre national conservation area that's set aside as an HCP for the benefit of the desert tortoise. And Commissioner Law, I would like to assure you that an 8-foot fence will be 100% effective.
But we have to dig down for those fences, right?
They may burrow under it, but I guarantee they won't be jumping over it. We began our HCP project. That journey began in 1989 when the Fish and Wildlife Service listed the desert tortoise as a threatened species. We signed one of the first, if not the first, habitat conservation plan in the United States in 1996, where we set this land aside. When we signed that plan, we talked in rather vague terms about the need for a northern corridor. And it was a part of that, but if I could wind you back in time to 1996, Washington County only had 40,000 people. Right now our population's 175,000 people, and the governor is predicting that we'll have a population of over 500,000 people by 2050. And so things are changing rapidly, and because our HCP had a 20-year lifetime on it, it expired in 2016. We are operating under a letter of extension right now to keep this going. But one of the things that we want to be very resolute about is that we amend the renewal with an amendment that will specifically call out and provide for a right-of-way for the northern corridor. With the population that we're seeing being vague, just doesn't work anymore. We think we need to be specific. And we have on our HCP several signatories, and I think it's really good to point out that the state of Utah is one of those signatories on the HCP, with the Division of Wildlife Resources signing on with that. So these are the agencies that are collaborating together to renew that. And I approached this board last September with a proposal to work with UDOT on this new route, this northern corridor, which would be a major route from Highway 18 to exit 13 in Washington County that would clip through 65 acres of this national conservation area. Wanting to be really great stewards of the tortoise and of all of that that makes Washington County so unique. We went through a visioning process several years ago where we identified that we wanted to keep beautiful view sheds, clean air, clean water, those things that make you want to live or visit in Washington County. And consistent with that, for that 65 acres that we would lose with that right-of-way application, we worked with SITLA and other entities to add just almost 7,000 acres of new land to the HCP with tortoise density as high as any of the density we have anywhere else in the reserve. This truly becomes an environmental win-win. I'm finding that a lot of people, especially those that are more recent, don't always want to see Washington County grow. I don't know that I have the ability to stop or impede or induce or do any of that, but I feel my job as a commissioner is to responsibly plan for those needs that we see are coming our way. And I'd like to point out that 2/3 of Washington County's growth is indigenous growth. We have over 32,000 children in our K through 12 schools. And so seeing this growth in the pipeline just absolutely reinforces in my mind the necessity of what we're doing. Now, as we work with Jacobs Engineering, which is the firm that UDOT has enlisted to submit the right-of-way application that is a part of it. It's an amendment to our HCP application. They're ready to put that paperwork in, and I've got a couple of flow charts there, and they're quite busy. We don't really need to look at those other than to see that the HCP process and the right-of-way application process are very similar processes, and they could be done concurrently by BLM and Fish and Wildlife, or they could be combined. We actually feel that that would be the wisest way to do it. But irregardless, the renewal of the HCP and the application for the right-of-way that UDOT is graciously undertaking for that highway work so much with each other that we feel it would really be of benefit for the taxpayers of the state, taxpayers of Washington County, to work those processes together. And let me explain some of the ways that I feel that that would really be a cost savings. And so timing, the right-of-way application has different trigger points and deadlines, and the HCP renewal has almost identical trigger points and applications, because the only thing that's changing on the HCP renewal is the amendment for the highway. And so you see that overlap. The level of effort for each agency is very, very similar between Fish and Wildlife and BLM. The Section 7 agency consultations that have to be taken into account follow the same, almost identical process. Field surveys for the desert tortoise where that road would run will be basically identical between the HCP renewal and the right-of-way application. And finally, the public messaging and the open houses that we'll have for people to come in and gather comment. Now, to be very honest and very specific with you, combining these will still add some additional cost to it. What I would propose, and my request of UDOT, would be to allow our staff to work with your staff and create an MOU that could identify what those enhanced costs would be by working with each other and using Jacobs Engineering as a common contractor for both of those pieces that are 90%, in my opinion, there's that much overlap, that if we could work that agreement out and Washington County pick up in entirety that increase in expense, I think this would save a lot of money rather than Washington County going out and hiring another entity to replicate most of what Jacobs Engineering is already doing. We've had a chance to work with Jacobs. You've selected a wonderful contractor. We have a good relationship with them, and we're confident that they have the expertise to do that, and it makes sense rather than having two competing voices and two different deadlines to merge this and do it together. It is the wise stewardship of funds, and again, thank you. I hope that it's possible that we could get that kind of communication between our people and your staff, that we can save our taxpayers a significant amount of money. Any questions?
Would you please go back to the second slide there of the tourists? First of all, that is not one of our tourists. Ours is good looking, and we don't starve them to death to eat their own shell. I promise you that. Secondly, I was there 22 years ago. I wasn't in 1996 having that signature documents. My family, me and my family, or family or I, whichever the way goes. It was not good meeting. The rating for that meeting was mature audience only. Language, violence, it was bad. 22 years later, I was in a meeting with Commissioner Cox. We had 20 different entities attended. It was peaceful. It was more understanding, more respectful. Thank you for your leadership, Commissioner.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to see how they're working together to solve this long-awaited problem. And that is just one of those things I would like to see, the cooperation, the spirit of cooperation, like Mayor Chauvin will talk about, and Washington County is famous for. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing this subject. So appreciate for that.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes.
What are the barriers to this idea that you have?
The biggest barrier, I actually think, is administrative, and it's by some entrenched bureaucratic mindsets. Now, I'll give you some background quickly on it.
I was looking at some
we talked about
that are likely more
the Northern Corridor when these documents were originally signed. But Washington County went through a public lands bill process in 2009 that specifically directed the BLM, working in consultation with Washington County and the City of St. George, to come up with one or more alternatives for a Northern Corridor. It directed the BLM to do a transportation management plan and a resource management plan that would identify these. What we ended up getting was a resource management plan with an exclusion zone that was north and south for the entirety of the HCP that would preclude a corridor from going through it. Now, we feel, and many others feel, that that's a direct violation of the plain language of the Washington County Lands Bill. Then in the Interior Appropriations Bill that was passed this year, last April, Congress again directed the Department of Interior to provide for this corridor. We think the language and the intent is clear, but as that resource management plan was being put together, one of the local office leaders in the NCA administrator said, Congress clearly doesn't understand how we do things. And we don't put roads
on the public record.
We don't put roads in NCAs, and that's why they put the exclusion zone in it. Yet the language that we worked with Congress to develop made an allowance for the utility development protocols and the Northern Corridor, and for that, Washington County gave up an additional 129,000 acres of wilderness. We allowed for the creation of 2 NCAs, and we thought that we would get this much needed corridor. We gave up everything and received absolutely nothing back. We think that right now we have an environment with the Congress and the administration that if we act quickly, we have a window of opportunity that we can be responsible stewards of the environment and have this corridor which will prevent gridlock that we're already seeing. You know, we had the tour of Utah, and we have a small segment of this highway already built, and we had to shut it down for the tour of Utah. It caused widespread travel problems in St. George. As our population grows, this is an absolute necessity, and it can be done. The disturbance is, they feel, 10 to 20 tortoises. They won't be lost. We would have to maybe move them from the footprint of the road, either north or south, and the road itself would be permeable. So if we stick one on the wrong side, they'll be able to cross back over. It's a project that needs to happen, but it has some controversy to it because everyone does not want to see the growth that is predicted will one day come to Washington County.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll ask Brian to give it a miniature bridge for our tourists to cross.
They like tunnels.
Rick, would you like to add anything?
Rick Orson, Region Director for UDOT. This project and the HCP are certainly connected. We're evaluating right now how that connectivity is with our consultant, and what Commissioner Cox has presented to you today is 2 different paths. One is congruent, or combine these efforts together, but they are certainly on the same timelines. And so I guess what we're looking at is we've got a couple of meetings set up over the next few weeks to take what the county is suggesting here and dive in a little more detail, look at the environmental process with our environmental managers, and discuss which direction we could go forward with this to help the entire project out.
Would this be the first time we ever did this?
I don't know how many HCPs are in the state of Utah. There's probably not very many.
And I don't even know if there are
I don't think there's any other map.
Okay.
Our right-of-way document for the Northern Corridor has to deal with the resource management plan of the BLM as well, which is also tied to HCP, so they are all interrelated. It's just separate.
I don't question that. I just wanted to know this partnership. Would it be the first time we did anything specifically like this?
I think
yes,
so. I think so.
Right.
Groundbreaking. Oh, in so many
We're going to send Ivan in to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Ivan's looking like, don't talk about
I've already put them in a difficult position. I've actually spoken personally with the president on this and with Secretary Zinke about this, so they are very aware. It's really the appropriate time to move forward with this.
Shane?
Yes. Mr. Chair, we have not gone through a right-of-way process like this before, and it should be noted that we aren't doing that. We're supporting the county's efforts in going through this. We have certainly been co-leads on environmental documents with local governments across the state. So it's not something new necessarily. The process might be a little bit different than we had before, but we have definitely been in partnership with been in a partnership with local governments all across the state. So
I
don't
don't
think it's something
dispute
new.
that.
We do have some contract issues that we need to make sure we can get through if we go this direction. We hired a consultant for a specific scope. We want to make sure that this is included in that scope before we can just add to it. But what the commissioner said does make a lot of sense. Having one process and one decision is always better than having two separate processes.
So maybe the deep state can be made a little more shallow?
So if you recall, we did receive $500,000 to start the BLM right-of-way documentation probably 6 months ago. Through that last 6 months, we have hired the consultant Jacobs, has been talked about here, and they are evaluating with the BLM all the needed documentation for that right-of-way. So we are getting closer to analyzing where we're at the budget, the phase 2 portion of that project, and we'll more than likely be coming back to you in the next month or two to seek additional funds to take this to the next step based on what we've learned from the BLM and what their right-of-way process is.
Okay. Any question from Rick? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Just want to add to what you said. Being new, this is very impressive to see the cooperation. In a past life, I've worked for state government and other entities and a lot of different boards, and it's just wonderful to see the cooperation at state and local levels, which I've never seen before that I'm seeing here. And it's very, just like commend all of you. I wanted to add to what you said, that seeing that, keep up the good work. It's just refreshing to see this taking place. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, because they're wise enough to acquire their support from their spouses. That's the wonderful thing to do. Okay, let's go to the next item. Ivan Guerrero, show us the money.
Some money.
No pressure.
I do want to say, perfect timing having a federal official come and speak right after in frustration with the other federal agencies.
Well, we love you.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope to put a nice positive spin on the federal highway side of the operation here. First of all, to follow up with the question about the CDL, I was able to get on my phone real quick and Google what's required to become a truck driver, and yes, as we would expect, you have to be federal regulations require that you read and speak English enough to be able to understand highway signs and speak to the public and fill out reports, and also like maybe Jason had mentioned that the actual test is administered in English, so you would expect drivers to be able to at least communicate and understand the English language. But so there you go. That's that one. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for having me speak to you today. I want to thank Chris and his group in Region 1 for the good, nice tour yesterday. You know, I was telling Commissioner Law that I think the other couple of times I've been to this area of the state has been in the wintertime, and it definitely looks different in January than it does in July. So it is a beautiful valley, and I'm glad I was able to come. I got on my bike and rode around for a little while yesterday. I got to see some of the construction work that's going on and some of the beautiful scenery out on the road. So it's really nice. Let me see real quick here. Okay, so one of the things that I get every quarter is a report. It's called our Financial Management Dashboard, and so it kind of presents some of the items that we're tracking on the federal side, as far as how quickly the money is being moved around in the states, how quickly it's being put to work, and all of that. So I wanted to present to you the, let's see, can I control this head? Great. So I think the last time I spoke to you, well, not the last time, but before I presented the second quarter report, and just to show the comparison of the numbers between the second quarter and the fourth quarter. Somehow I missed the third quarter. I'm not sure what that data is. But regardless, this is the data for the end of our performance year, which ends in May of 2018. And again, it shows that the first box is what's called the fire index, and that's just more internal to our office. It shows that our office is accomplishing the goals that have been set as far as providing financial oversight to the program here in Utah. So we're doing good. We're meeting 20 of the 20. We made 20 of the 20 scores as expected. The second box is that timely obligation. That's a reflection of how quickly projects are, once they are authorized by federal highways, how quickly they are started and put and go into construction. So basically, it shows percentage of projects that have incurred expenses within 9 months after they have been obligated. So that means that, you know, within 9 months, we've had 91.2% of the projects start charging. So it's a great number. It's a little low, little dip from the second quarter, and that's just a reflection that if you go back 9 months, that kind of puts us into the June, July of last year, and that's when UDOT really has a lot of projects starting to be put into, be authorized. But for some of those, they maybe because of the season, they have to wait till the spring to start. So there's a little bit of delay in the expenditures there. So it's not a bad number. We're way above the national average of 81%. So we're doing great here in Utah. The third box is the inactive obligations, and that's a reflection of is the money sitting around. Basically, we it shows us that over the last 12 months we haven't had any money sitting there, you know, any money that hasn't been built. So basically, we're at 0%, and the target is 2%. So we're doing great here in Utah. So again, we're putting the money to work. And the final one is how quickly we once the project is completed, how quickly we close the books on those projects. The national average is 9.9%. We are at 1.19%. Again, excellent work by UDOT, the way they manage their projects, the way they schedule the projects. So it's just amazing. Our office meets regularly with UDOT staff, and they go over these numbers, make sure that the projects are being moved along. So again, it's a good reflection of our good collaboration, and I thank you for that because it makes my job very easy. Let's see, and one item to report today is the, okay, so we have received the advance notification of the apportionment that is coming to the state of Utah. You can see in the yellow band there, it's divided by the different programs or different pots where this money goes into. So Utah will be getting $374 million. This is just the advance. The final number may change a little bit here and there, but it looks like it's going to be about $374 million. That's an increase of about $10 million from last year. One thing I want is Linda's not here.
No, she's not.
Okay, well, Linda will be very happy to hear. When we get these advance notices, another thing we get is if we get notified there are any penalties that are going to be applied to the states. And this year there were no penalties identified for Utah. Last year we had one where we
open containers.
On electric bikes. So basically, if you're riding on an electric bike, holding a beer, you can't. That was a violation according to one of our sister agencies. So Linda and staff were very hard.
We changed the law.
We changed the law, and now there are no penalties this year for Utah.
You do it with your scooters now.
Good work,
That's probably a new one.
That's undoubtedly.
So it's interesting. We're always, so the federal laws here and the state law changed the classification of a vehicle to include an electric bike, but it didn't bring along the fact that you couldn't have an open container on that electric bike, which was now classified as a vehicle. And so we got penalized for that. We've been working with Senator Hatch's office to change the law, which will now give states a full legislative season, one session. If states identified as being out of compliance, you will now have a full legislative season to come back in compliance before any penalties are issued, and Senator Hatch's office has been great to work with us on that.
What kind of driver's licenses?
The second item there, I just want to report that MAP 21 required the states to develop a transportation asset management plan. Now, Utah already does their business like this. They have a good asset management plan in place, so it was a neat thing to put together. So we were able to certify that the plan that UDOT has complies with the federal regulations. I want to thank, actually, I think we were the 5th state to get that certification done, so good job there. And I know Monty, all did a great job with that. So I want to thank Monty and his group for putting that together. Let's see, number 3. Another thing we have to do, that has to be done, is approval of the disadvantaged business enterprise goals. This is where the state analyzes their the construction industry and determines how many women and minorities businesses need to be incorporated into the program, and selects a goal. We review that goal and approve it. So for this year, we approved that goal of 7.97%. And again, I've been told that we were the first state to get it done. So yeah, thank you to UTA for getting that done so quickly. The infra grant. I guess I can finally officially say that UTA has been granted a $25 million grant for the Northwest Quadrant Freight Mobility Project under the infra grant, the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America program. So even though that's probably the worst kept secret around, we were not able to officially announce this number until now. So there it is, and I know that wheels are already moving on that project.
Because this is a project that you've already funded. So.
So, well, the next step is develop a grant agreement. We'll have to, there's a template that has to be filled out with a bunch of information. So once that grant agreement is executed, the funds will become available to you to use.
What part of the project, that's more than just a study, that's in fact...
Yeah, that's all the project. So
Brian, would you brief the commission on the 5600 West project? Because you love making presentations.
Whenever snow plows involved.
You taking time already?
Not yet. That's close. Yeah, we've got we're under design right now for 5600 West. The plan is have it advertised and actually start construction by early next year.
What's the scope? Scope?
So the scope of the project will be, it started out with building a bridge over the railroad crossing right there, and then we've added to that, we're going to go ahead and widen 5600 West all the way from 201 to I-80, and also do some improvements at the interchange of I-80, converting it over to a DBI.
Do you remember how much the commission's already programmed to it?
74, isn't it? Yeah, 74 million.
Great.
So we're on track, getting ready to build another awesome project.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we're so pleased, of course, that our Carlos is in fact a member of this Inland Port Commission too. It gives the transportation a high visibility and the confidence we need, to be done right. So congratulations again to Carlos for that.
And I do need to point out that overall USDOT, there were 26 projects awarded in 23 different states and totaling $1.5 billion. So that was a total sum of the program. Just a couple of really quick items to finish up with here. Back in August, Federal Highway went out with a solicitation for states who wanted to receive some technical assistance from Federal Highways in making multimodal community connections framework. So looks like Summit County went ahead and requested that assistance, and I was just notified that they've been selected. So federal resources will be brought here to Summit County to help them as they look at they're trying to, let's see, right there's a statement. They're going to work on a gateway corridor, and basically they're going to, seems like they have several different plans in place. They want to bring them all together into one solid plan to ensure multimodal transportation in Summit County. So there will be federal highway resources coming to assist them with this effort. I don't know if there's any money involved. So, and the last item, the August redistribution.
Have you announced the number right now?
No, I am not ready to announce the number. Seems like Brigida always gets to announce these numbers, and we'll see who's around the next commission meeting. But I've been told by August 31st we will have a number ready to announce. And that's what I have for you today. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from Ivan? Thank you, as usual.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan. It's now 4 years that he's been in Utah. It's been a great 4 years in Oklahoma.
Is there any more public comments from anyone, citizens, state, federal officials? Seeing none, we move on to the next item. Thank you. All right, UDOT scoreboard, and Carmen, what a treat.
Yes, definitely, right? Here's the dashboard up. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to present today. I'm just going to cover where we are with project development at this point. As you can see on your screen, for advertising status, we have 7 past due. And a lot of projects coming within the next 60 days. But as you can see through procurement in our group, we'll have like over 554 projects. Looking at performance, you can see here, we are at 86%. But you have to keep in mind that this is for the state fiscal year, so it's really 1 month worth of information. We did look at some projections, and tentatively we're projected to come in much higher than the 86%. Moving into total project estimates for the projects at this point. Again, this is for 1 month. You can see that there is one red that came in. Otherwise, everything has been, cost estimates have come in and the committed dates have been met on these projects. The red project, the budget came in just slightly over, and the region plans to just cover that additional cost of some contingency funds that they have. This is a chart that I do like a lot, because you can really see the number of projects and the amount of work that we're working on. If you're looking in August, there's one that is past it's unadvertised and past due. And you can see all the committed dates. But what's interesting, you can see all the purple. You can see all of the purple do not necessarily have committed dates though, but there are all the projects that are in scoping at this point. So once they get a committed date in our system, you will see them kind of jump out. So you will see changes to this chart based on when that project gets a committed date in the system. You can also see some of these projects that were ready early, the green, that did have an earlier committed date. We have advertised them early. Getting into more of the project counts and construction contracts, you can see out in August, there's probably just 173 projects under contract. You can see that we're paying out about $700 million was paid out, and you can see the rest of the remaining contracts that we have is about 650. And as you can see with contractor payments, July was a really big month for us in payment. And I think that's a lot due to several projects that really started to initiate, and some of the design builds, they were doing more work. So there was a much higher level in this jump right here in July. And then August seems pretty average at this point for contractor payments.
That's half of August, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. So with all the big projects that are coming, I would expect that to be higher when.
So we're paying out over $3 million a day to contractors.
Wow. May I just interrupt to ask, how are our costs doing? I mean, given the crazy tariffs, quoting Senator Hatch, the reckless tariffs and other things,
we have seen some escalation in some of the costs. There's a graph just a little bit lower that will kind of show where our engineers' estimates are coming in, and then what the bid prices are.
Right, we certainly heard a lot of stories.
Yeah, we've had to adjust definitely some of our engineers' estimate, go back and reevaluate those based on steel escalation and some other items. Labor's been more expensive. Mm-hmm. So we have had to adjust some of the costs in that area. This chart really just shows whether the percent time elapsed exceeds the percent project complete. As you can see, we have one project that is greater than the 30%, but we're kind of working through that. But if you look at the program on a whole, I mean, we're meeting all of our commitments. Oh, and this is the chart that I was speaking of, the contract award versus engineer's estimate. And as you can see, our engineer's estimate, we did some adjustments. The blue is the original contract amount that was signed. So with our adjustments, we're still coming in line with what the bid prices were, but we did have to increase some of those costs because of it.
So when she talks about increasing the engineer's estimate is a component within the total commission approved amount that you've set aside.
Right.
So basically, those contracts, those commission approved amount includes the construction piece, the design engineering, any utility work, any right-of-way work. So the regions have to work within that total commission approval. If not, they have to come back to the commission.
Well, once a contract is signed between UDOT and the contractors, that is set. They cannot increase during the construction.
Oh, I wish that was the
Really
case.
is.
You're right.
They have.
There's always changes to construction contracts. I mean, if you look and see historically and around the country, you'll see around a 7% increase in those final construction costs. Last year, I think we were 4%, and I think the year before we were like 1%. So we're managing it very tightly, but there's always this point that you're never going to completely understand the project until you dig in the ground. And you can't design out 100% of this.
So as commission, do we approve that contingencies then, engineers?
No, it's part of the total commission approved amount. So we work within that total commission approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And with that, that's the report on where project development is today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Carmen?
No, thank you.
You did a fantastic
Great.
job.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Good work.
While Jason's coming up, I'll remind the commission, if you go to the UDOT webpage, udot.utah.gov, and you look at the strategic plan that's located on the left side, you can go into that and see all of our dashboards. So, Jason's even going to start here from the strategic level. Carmen was working down on what we call tactical measures for the project delivery. So you can see all of this information. It's live and available to the public.
Jason.
Good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
Not once in all the times that Randy and I have come walking up here, we said it's a treat to have Randy or Jason.
It is so wonderful to see you.
One appearance.
Just cute glasses.
I understand, but I didn't notice.
Well, stand up. Welcome back, Jason. It's such a treat to see you again.
Hey, who's our video?
I'll miss you next month.
Who's our video guy when we walk in there? It's Jason on the screen there.
So our current safety score for, I call it the safety score, isn't just about our external crashes and fatalities, but it's internal and external. We're currently sitting at 93.5%, which is pretty good, something to be proud of. As you can see, there's obviously a couple data errors here when we drop down that far, anytime you see very substantial spikes like that, but it just has to do with when the information is gathered. It's not necessarily that the data is wrong, it's just what time it's measured within the calendar year. If you look here at our traffic fatalities, our target is to be 2.5% less than we were last year, which would put us at 170.
Of rolling 3-year average, right?
Of the rolling 3-year average. Our actual fatalities is 162. And I'll get into a little bit more detail at the end of this, but that's a positive. It's not zero, but it's going down, and that's the trend we want to see. Our internal fatalities is 0, which I never want to see another dot on that graph again. Our serious injuries tends to lag a couple of months, so we're quite a ways into the year, so we have some decent numbers. But our target's 482, and we're sitting at 379. And our employee injury rate is something that we're pretty happy about as well. Our target is 3.52, and we're sitting at 2.94. So I applaud all of our employees, our leaders at the regions and our different areas within the central office making this a focus and looking very closely at how our employees do their jobs and make sure they have the right tools to do their jobs. If you look at our crashes, it's always a number that's pretty mind-boggling. 62,000, almost 63,000 total last year. We are below our target. We're still 19, almost 20,000 crashes for the year through this time that we've measured it, but our target was 21,000, so 2,000 less, roughly, than our target. And then our equipment damage rate is the one area that continues to exceed our targets, and we're focusing on that with our learning program, our training program, I guess you could say, through Lori Economies Group and our Central Employee Safety Group, and looking at ways to bring that number down. And I won't pick on Rick today.
Primarily, what is that?
Primarily, equipment damage is a combination of our 10-wheelers and our light-duty fleet. And so it can be anything from running into a gate, going in and out of one of our yards, or a garage door that perhaps our employee didn't lower the bed on the 10-wheeler when they were washing it out. That was an example I seen recently. To being out there on the road and having somebody run into us. So this doesn't necessarily look at fault, this just looks at the equipment damage that we're incurring throughout the year. So even when we have somebody else at fault running into it, we look at, could we have done something better to lower the risk and exposure of our employees out there on the road? So it may be what time of day we do it, the equipment we have out there, just everything. We're always looking at improving and keeping our employees and the public safe. So I wanted to mention a couple other things. We're almost through our 100 deadliest days period, if you recall. That starts on Memorial Weekend and ends on Labor Day weekend. We are currently at 79 fatalities. This was as of Monday, August 13th, but 79 statewide. And interesting enough, almost 50% of those fatalities are not people in cars or trucks. Yeah. It is, we had 22 motorcycle fatalities, 10 pedestrians, and 1 bicyclist. So just within that period of time during the 100 deadliest days, almost half of them are a group that you don't think is going to be that big of a contributor overall to the numbers, but it's those vulnerable users that we focus on. We have the Heads Up program, and we wish could bring that down. The other thing I wanted to mention is last year, about this time, we had 20 motorcycle fatalities. We have 37. That was as of Monday. And so that group, for whatever reason, has been substantially higher this entire year. And it wasn't one event, it wasn't 1 month, it has just consistently been higher every year. So we've had several of our VMS messages that focused on motorcycle safety, both for the motorcycle rider, for them to be aware, and for the motorists driving around motorcyclists, because it's been about a 50-50 split about who's been at fault in those type of crashes. So those are the...
Is it a similar trend across the country?
Our numbers, we do a very good job of getting our stuff in very quickly. The rest of the country is not so quick on their statistics, so I couldn't really say at this point if it's a trend across the country. I do know that the number of registered motorcycles has been going down since about 2015, so it's not necessarily just an increase in people out there on motorcycles. So there's something else there, and you know, I think it's a little bit of a cop-out on my part, but I tend to point to the distracted driving and the use of phones and stuff of that interaction. But I don't think the motorcyclists are being distracted with their phones while they're driving, so that other 50% of them being at fault, I can't really
can't point to that as being the cause. And it's all age groups. It's amazing. It's from 70-plus-year-olds down to the 20-year-olds. So.
And I usually ask the same question, but a lot of those fatalities are head trauma.
Yeah, it's typically a large cause.
I still see a lot of people riding without helmets.
Old
and young.
The right gear, the right equipment, from leathers to the helmet, makes a difference and makes any type of crash, just like wearing a seatbelt, more survivable. But sometimes there really isn't anything you could have done differently. Doesn't matter what you have on. So it's being aware, it's avoiding the crash to start with. That's the best safety action that you can take. Any other questions?
Any other question from Jason? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, Shane?
Can I take just 2 seconds on this?
Please do.
Just to give some education to Commissioner Evans on, you're going to see a lot of data. So if you like data, welcome. And you're going to hear a lot of acronyms. So those are the 2 things that you're going to get a handle of if you are on this commission. Commissioner Holbrook loves to talk about acronyms. We have 3 broad scores that we try to present and keep track of. This number, 93.5, means somewhere along these 6 measures down here we're not meeting our target. That's all that number means. We'd like to see that. If that's 100, we've met our target in these 6 categories. So it's a compilation of those rolled up into one, so we can quickly see where we're at. We have 3 of those for our 3 main goals, and under each one of those goals we have these sub-targets or these sub-measures that we're trying to keep track of. So we roll them up into one number. I look at them on a daily basis to say, where are we at today? Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about when we say this historic safety index. So.
We ever gotten close to 100?
We have been. Just previous this year, we were above 100. Our employee accidents, our equipment damage has been driving us, well, I guess we weren't quite at 100 because we were just above right here. So once we get a handle on this, then we'll be at 100. So
okay, that's very helpful. Thanks, Shane.
Shane, I'm sorry. Go to the dashboard. Go to the front just to...
Oh, okay. Just kidding, I don't get there.
Just to show.
So there's a little home page button there. So this first thing talks about our strategic direction and a message from Carlos, and then here's our 3 strategic goals. And in just a moment, pretend that 71 doesn't exist, because we just talked about 93. There's still some things to get worked out. We're working hard on it, but you can see down here that this is our trend over time over the last several years. This is where we ended last year, and this is where we're currently at. And just kind of real quickly, where are we? What's the health of our organization? What's the health of the system in one simple page? So,
thanks.
And then under that, you have a whole bunch of performance measures if you want to really get into and dive into the department's measures. So we're excited about this. This is one of the few DOTs in the country that can look at a glance and see where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
So Shane, that 71% is because of when we put the data in there, depending on the month. So some of that data is doing a live measurement, but the presentation I gave you was based off the end of the month where we have all the data in there. So there's just some missing data in there to throw.
Okay. Yeah, we're trying to do this as live as we can. And when you do live measurements, it tends to fluctuate.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Item number 7 is internal audit schedule, and Shane Young is going to update us on that.
I'm not controlling this. Are you controlling it over here? It's like magic. Can you just pull up the 2 documents we had, and I'll go over those 2. Perfect. Members of the Commission, thank you for having me. My name is Shane Young. I'm the Performance Audit Manager for UDOT. Commissioner Evans, welcome and congratulations to your post.
Thanks.
I want to just give you a mid-year summary of where we're at with our audit schedule. As you recall from the beginning of the year, you approved an audit schedule for us of projects we needed to work on from an internal audit standpoint, and that schedule was derived from a 2017 risk assessment we conducted with all of our senior members, as well as interviews and surveys we conducted with staff. We are in the process right now of doing an interim risk assessment, by the way, so we can refresh the schedule for the 2019 year. We anticipate giving you a draft of that later in the year for your approval in December. But as of now, I wanted to show you where we stand in terms of this audit schedule. We've completed 2 projects this year so far. We've completed a comprehensive review of our internal accounting operations. We've worked with our comptroller's office as well as each of the regions to identify how they account for our accounting and pay for bills to approving transactions. I have a little more detail on that I'll show you in our next sheet, so I'll stop there. And then we just finished our review of a smaller group called Research and Innovations, Research and Innovations. That team takes a certain amount of funding for research projects, and they appropriate it to different partners in academia for research-related projects. We are not yet to the point of presenting our results to you, since we're still working with management and identifying what their corrective action plans are, as well as discussing our recommendations. But it was a well-received project, and I look forward to sharing some of the details next time we meet. If you scroll down, well, I'll scroll down for you, in the in progress category. Again, these were top 10 projects, and I've broken them down to what's been completed, what's in progress, and what's pending. We are currently working on our post-fatal accident review process. This is an area that's interesting because in one of our regions, we have a very robust process. When there's a fatal accident, we go out to the scene, we survey it, we try and analyze what occurred, and later on we get back together to identify if there are any inventory or infrastructure weaknesses that could have prevented a fatal accident. I think the question arose as to what are some of the liabilities and concerns with doing this process, if it's used against us, for example, in a court of law, or how the information is being interpreted. And our executive management team wanted us to see if there were any vulnerabilities we should consider as we move forward with this process. So we're looking forward to working with the regions and understanding what this is exactly and how it serves UDOT, and we'd love to report to you once we complete that review. One thing you're going to notice as I scroll down to the pending audits, these are the ones that we have yet to address for this year. We have about 7 projects, but you'll notice something on the very right, which is a project update. You'll notice for 3 of these areas, our senior leadership teams are not waiting for us to give them opinions. They're already moving to make changes and revisions. For example, one concern that we identified early in the year is that we don't have a good inventory system for our non-network devices. These are things such as iPads and tablets, and it was a concern because of the amount of money we spend, as well as the responsibility for the data and the responsibility of our employees to keep track of those devices when they use them for work and personal purposes. But instead of waiting for us to do a review to see how severe the problem is or where we need to make changes, our innovations and technology group has already implemented some strategies to better track those systems. So we've had to go back and revise our proposal to say, instead of seeing where we have vulnerabilities, we're now going to test how well do those new processes track what we need to with non-network devices. And same thing with, for example, our transportation technician program. There was a concern that the training for our transportation techs, the folks in the orange vests that are putting cones up everywhere you drive throughout the state, whether the training program meets the actual on-the-job experiences that they have. We will, again, revise our scope of work, not to say, does the training meet, but how well does the new training meet? Because UDOT's been in the process of revising that, and they were already revising it when we recognized this concern. I think we're going to find that this audit schedule is very organic, and you're going to see changes here and there. I look forward to, as we finish meeting with our senior leaders this year and revising our risk assessment, what changes there are to the schedule. I'm happy to answer questions regarding it when you see the new schedule in comparison to the old one, but I look forward to our participation and role in helping UDOT with this process. I'd like to show you just a sample of one of the reports that we put together. Heather, can you do your magic and pull this up? Oh, well, she's smarter than I am. She has it all together. So if you're wondering what is the internal audit function and how does it differ from our general external audit, if you look at AASHTO guidelines for an internal audit shop, there's two separate kind of thought processes that an internal audit function does. Part of our shop does what we call external audits, where we look at contractor payments and we do reconciliations based on invoices we receive and how much we spend for projects. The other part of it is called performance auditing, and that's the section that I'm showing you here in our comptroller report. This is an opportunity we have to look at other vulnerabilities and dynamics that impact UDOT just as much as our financial opportunities impact us. We look at risks and we look at process improvement opportunities when we go in and do an internal audit project. For us at UDOT, it's essentially, are we the most effective and are we the most efficient with the tools, resources, the staff and education levels, and the way we're exerting our energies to making our roads better. With the comptroller's view, the question was, the comptroller's office, it governs all of our financial activities, but unlike other organizations, our financial structure is very decentralized. Every region has their own financial group, and they process all of the payments and they do all of the financial accounting for each region to meet their needs. So how do you reconcile or coordinate 4 different groups and then with a governing body, our comptrollers on a central level? So I won't go over all of the details. I listed some high-level summaries here of each of our areas that we found that we do exceptionally well, as well as some of the recommendations that we provided to improve the process even further. We found in general our accounting groups in each of the regions perform really well. And the comptroller's office does a great job of trying to corral each of those regions to provide consistency as well as the highest accounting standards for UDOT. We found that one thing that the regions do exceptionally well is they have now, all of them have implemented what we call contract specialists. The longer you understand state government, the more you realize what the term red tape really means. And when it comes to buying things, the state is very, very fiscally prudent, which means that we have a lot of laws and requirements. And we found that with the regions, that some of that expertise isn't readily available. So the contract specialists are specifically dedicated to answer those tough questions when our crews are having to buy purchases that are a little unique or a little off of their normal path. And I think that's a highlight that shows that the regions are recognizing the need to have some of that expertise in-house so they don't disrupt their operations. As we scroll down to the recommendations, you'll notice that we have several recommendations. Our regions have admin support managers. These admin support managers look over financing and other areas of the regions. They report to the region director, but they also have a dotted line to the comptroller's office. And we found that the guidelines and the coordination between the comptrollers and the regions for what their roles and duties and responsibilities should be a little more consistent and a little more clear-cut in some areas. But again, overall, we're talking about a function that does very well. We're trying to just take it to the next level. And as we go through some of the other areas, you'll notice that our recommendations vary. There is a process called damage claims, where we collect on damages that other third parties have done to one of our structures or something that they're liable to pay back. We have folks who are trying to collect that money. And we found that that process was very decentralized, but there are statutes that tell us specific things that we need to do. I will save you the pain of listening to me sharing the rest of this unless you have any specific questions. But I will point out a couple of things. I've spoken to executive management, and they have decided, and I concur, that we will post all of our internal audit reports on our website. It's a transparent process. This process of developing a risk or audit schedule is a transparent process. We want people to know what we're doing. We want it to be relevant and risk-based. And so if you have questions about what reports and activities we're doing, we're going to publish these reports in further detail. This high-level summary is for your benefit, so you can do a quick glance here. And we look forward to reconvening with you at a later time to propose our new schedule for the following year. Are there any questions that you have that I can answer?
And this showed up in the satisfactory element, but I can't help but be curious why there are 3 different payroll systems.
That's a good question. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to? It has to do with how we manage the work. So,
oh, okay.
Well, I mean, don't be satisfied with that.
That's demonstrating my trust.
we have a system we call electronic project management, so EPM, and that's where our pre-construction people primarily enter their time, people that are designing the projects. And that's what we use to manage the schedules for all those projects that we're running through design. So they go ahead and they say, a structures engineer may say, that activity is going to take me 40 hours of design. And then they'll charge their time against that and status the activity on how much of that phase of work they've completed. And so they're entering their time against that pre-construction project management system so we can manage the projects. That their payroll entry, we don't want them to enter it twice, so that then uploads into the state payroll system.
Okay.
And we have the same type of system to manage maintenance activities out in construction and maintenance. So it's an OMS system, an operational management system, so that they can charge the particular activities that they're working on, so that we can then say, it takes $100,000 to set 100 feet of guardrail. And it takes this amount of money for equipment, this amount of materials, and this amount of labor. And so that we can then better understand how much money does it take, how much inputs does it take to get a certain outcome. And so that's the entire way we try to manage the system through kind of an asset management approach, so that we can project conditions based on how much resources we put into that system. So those 2 are separate systems, and everyone else, people like me that don't really do any work, we enter it into this typical state system that most other state employees do. I think DNR and Public Safety might be the only other 2 state agencies that have redundant payroll systems, multiple payroll systems.
That was a fantastic explanation.
I don't know
the way it's all put into the projects.
I'm talking from 20 years ago, and it's different.
No, he is exactly correct. I think it would be better classified as we have 3 different payroll entry places.
Okay.
And 1 payroll system. So you enter your payroll in a different place, but it all goes into 1 place that we get paid from.
Thank you.
To
I
put
like
it,
that kind of detail in the way you can tie it to the projects, and that's why we have such good reporting.
I bet none of them thought they would talk about payroll in this meeting today. But to put it in context as to why it's a satisfactory note on our end, if you think about having 3 systems, it's unique for any agency in the state, and it's by need. But you may have someone doing something that's related to maintenance and then go into construction, therefore they'll enter their time in 2 different systems. The state law requires us to have 1 coordinator to verify all payroll, and we have over 1,800 employees. And so the fact that employees can get paid every 2 weeks with little to no problems, we have a coordinator who's complying with the state law portion of it, and we have these 3 systems that function in a operational standpoint. It's a very impressive way that we keep track of people's time and we account for those hours.
Excellent. I appreciate understanding that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from this side?
How many people are on your team?
There are a total of 8 auditors, but there's 2 of us dedicated to doing internal audits. We will have someone retire at the end of the year, and we'll pick up another auditor to do performance audits. So we're seeing the pendulum shift from having originally 6 auditors doing external audits to 2 auditors doing performance audits to now 3 to 6, or 3 to 5, I should say.
And they don't just, they don't have the luxury of just working on what you see here. Shane works for Jimmy Hofels. Jimmy is our director of audit for the department. And, so there's always things that come up that, we ask them to investigate. So I wish I could say they spend 100% of their time working through this list. They get distracted.
Yes, we do.
Do you go to each region to do the internal audit for each office?
Yes and no. We'll go to each region when we do the risk assessment. And so we are a resource and a help to identify what their needs and vulnerabilities and concerns are. In terms of what we do for audits, if they're part of our audit scope, then we will work very closely with the region if they're part of that review. And for us, in internal side, we try to make it the most collaborative and cooperative process. And so there's no sudden surprises at the end of a report. And we find that, well, two things, and I think it's important for you to know as a commission, that we have been very privileged from an internal audit side to have full access to all of the information and personnel we've needed, which is always a concern with internal auditors. And UDOT has been extremely responsive to our recommendations when we've had them. And so you have mentioned collaboration constantly throughout this meeting. We see that tenfold with our work.
Thank you. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Good report. Okay, item number 8. Terry is going to update us about SB 136.
Yes, I'm going to only update you about 2 elements of it, and I'm going to ask you to kind of go to the other side of your brain. We're going to go from talking about details of payroll to statewide strategic initiatives. So just kind of go to the other end there. So just quickly, I want to let you know that with SB 136, there's about 2 pages of language that ask us to look at statewide strategic initiatives across all modes. So we are in the process of doing that. We are asked to come back and report to the commission on that. This is not your formal report on it, but just letting you know that we're in progress with it. And we are supposed to report to Transportation Interim Committee by December 1st of each year on this initiative. So we're really looking at that in 2 pieces. There's the broad piece of it where we need to set some goals, and we'll be talking to a number of stakeholders related to transportation, trying to look at statewide goals. We've got a lot of work that's already done on goals through the Unified Plan, Your Utah, Your Future. There are a lot of things out there where we've established statewide types of goals. We'd like to gather a group together of stakeholders and see if we can come to some level of agreement on goals that we then send back to the legislature, which can help inform policy. So that's kind of what this is about. We have a second piece of that where we get down into more of the detail and work on the specific strategic initiatives that can help further those goals. So again, I'm going to go to that broad perspective here. Along with that, we are supposed to update our prioritization process. And when I say ours, I really mean yours. So we are working on that right now. We have a consultant on board. We are asked to take into account some additional factors in the legislation. It asks us to also look at economic development, access to jobs, recreation, commerce, and also to look at matching funds. So we're in the process of working our way through that. Have been talking with Carlos the last week about potential of coming back to the commission in a staff update meeting and spending a little more in-depth time with you talking about this update to the prioritization process, because it's one of the major things that you do is recommend projects, and this prioritization process should help you do that in the most the best way possible. So anyway, that's the very quick update on it, and likely we'll be trying to set up something at your staff update in September to go into a little bit more detail on it.
So I'm hoping you'll indulge us. I mean, we could, Terry had a team that spent 2 solid days working on this. I don't expect 2 solid days, but maybe a couple hours with the commission during a staff update in September would be helpful because at the end of the day, you have to adopt it through rulemaking, an update to the prioritization process, and that's the tool that you use to inform you. It's not a black box. We don't throw projects in and out spits an absolute order, but the law basically states that it's there to inform your decision making, and if you were to drop down the list, there needs to be discussion in a public meeting as to why that was done. So it's your process. We'll try to make, we'll facilitate it to make it as painless as possible, but we've been instructed to include things other than the engineering criteria that's typically been in there, so we've included things like traffic, congestion, safety, future growth have been the typical criteria in there. Terry's mentioned some of the things the legislature would like you to include in this updated prioritization process. So I'm apologizing now for taking your time in September, but I think it's going to be
great, Carlos.
It's going to be important.
We'll think of little else between now and then.
I'm sure.
It's going to be great, though. This is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's an important deal.
Any question right now from Terry? Thank you.
It's in good hands. Thank you.
Okay, item number 9 under business items. We have now time for consent agenda for the commission. Approval of minutes and of course amendment number 10.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, there's a motion.
Second.
Motion on the second. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 10, program development and our new dollar bill. We have 2 items now. Item Harlow, please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate this opportunity. I know I've got big shoes to fill. Bill's a big, tall guy. He's got bigger feet than I do, so we'll see how we do.
We told Ida he needed to sing the national anthem before this.
Yeah. Then they heard me practice and said, no, don't. Okay. Do we want to go review the return money first?
Well, they did it as part of the consent.
Yeah,
so
was it on?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, why don't you, because you're going to propose spending some of that, right?
I am.
So why don't you just show that table?
Is this?
So he's going to go back to your consent agenda for a minute.
For just a moment, one thing that we changed, we added a little bit just to provide a little bit more information as we go forward with this at the bottom of the consent agenda.
Life and death.
In the past, we've shown this section, and we've summarized it a little bit to be able to show here's the different money that's coming back from which project and what fund type. And then below it, not us being presumptuous, just trying to help provide a little better view of the program, you'll be able to see each of the regions and the major funding types across the top of this view, and it shows what was coming back with the consent agenda under the returning portion, and then the programming component that we'll be discussing next, just so that you have a better understanding of this is the current available budget, this is how much money is coming back to that budget, and what we're presenting to be spent. Obviously, this won't be completed until after we review that and receive approval and make those changes. Okay. So I apologize, I'm jumping back a little bit on that one. Okay. Our first item, Region 1 has requested approval to add $700,000 to the I-84 milepost 0 to 40 median cable barrier project. It is currently funded at $2,883,766. The additional money for this project is available. It comes from $275,000 from the HSIP, or the Highway Safety Improvement Program, from Central Traffic and Safety, and $425,000 is available from the Region 1 Purple Book Program. It's deobligated from the SDP funds. The additional funds to this project are needed to cover both projected overruns and change orders for the drainage changes, and additional import material needed to provide the required slopes for the cable barrier installation. The existing median had more areas that needed to be filled with import material than what was determined in the existing survey. There is an exhibit that shows this project. Starts north of Snowville and comes down into Tremont or near Tremont. The motion is needed to approve the additional $700,000 to this I-84 project, the median cable barrier project as detailed.
Move for approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussions on the subject? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second item for today, Region 3 is requested to separate US 40 project. At a previous commission, we combined these two projects. It is a passing lane project with a pavement project, and it was determined that with some environmental challenges on the wetlands, there will be a delay in getting the passing lane project completed. So what we were proposing and would like to request approval is to separate these projects, and in order to get the pavement project done in 2019 and the passing lane project done in 2020. The region would also like to move $1.3 million from the pavement project to the passing lane project and help fund a portion of the pavement work for the passing lane project. The new project value for the pavement project is $9.2 million, and the new project value for the passing lane is $13.6. The region is not asking for any additional funds. So we're just separating these back. Again, we have a map that shows where this project is located. You can see the passing lane project as it goes through Gusher. We'll separate those back. Okay. A motion is needed to approve to separate the US 40 West Roosevelt to Gusher project and US 40 Gusher eastbound passing lane and center turn lane project, and move some pavement money from pin 14617 to pin 13385 as detailed.
I move to approve.
Motion second. There's a motion and a second to approve the project. Any further discussion, questions, concerns? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
US 40 is the main artery for that region.
Our next item is in Region 3. Region 3 requests approval to add 1.228, or 1,228,000, let me say it that way, of funds to the Lehigh 1200 West to 2100 North to Timpanogos Highway project. These funds come out of the Transportation Alternative Program, and this project is currently funded at $5.4 million. The region would like to add $688,000 of their Transportation Alternative Program funds to the local government project in Lehigh to help with the cost of installing bike lanes. These bike lanes will provide a priority connection in this area. The bike lanes will help people connect to two regionally significant trail systems, and the bike lanes extending west to Saratoga Springs. Region 3 currently has $600,000 of the TAP funds that are not programmed, and the balance will come from the SR 68 buffered bike lane project, pin 14821. This project, this buffered bike lane project, was scheduled to stripe, but will be delayed and done in conjunction with a pavement project in 2020. Lehigh requested that the Mountain Land Association of Governments, or MAG, add $540,000 of their Utah County Transportation Sales Tax funds to this project, and that was approved at their board meeting at the 2nd of August. The new project value will be $6,628,000. Also included is a map showing the stretch of that bike lane project.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I drive this road twice a day, 5 days a week, and I'm always worried that one of those cyclists is going to get hit along there. Right now, they're hanging on the road, there's dirt, and there's a lot of cyclists from the tech companies up there that use that stretch of road, so I think this is necessary. You know, I'd make a motion when we're ready to approve this.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Motion and a second on the subject. Any further discussion? I have one question, Ivan. In the case that we have local share and the expense, if the check comes in advance, deposit to the UDOT account, or will we invoice them later on after the project is finished? How is that process?
We will enter into an MOU with them and give them the money, and they will run it through their process. It won't be part of our process.
Okay.
So just a brief little history on the transportation, on the TAP funds themselves. Each region gets a portion of them, and each region manages them just slightly different. You'll see projects from Region 1 and Region 2, a very long list of them, with leveraging local dollars along with each one of those projects, and Region 4 is the same way. Region 3 took the approach of putting it all into one and doing one larger project. So that's why you see such a large $688,000 ask in this case, and you're going to see more of like a $400 or a $40,000 to $50,000 ask in other regions. So they do it slightly different, but at the end of the day, they're leveraging almost $700,000 of our money with $7 million of the local money. So it's a good leverage.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item, Region 4, request approval to add $1 million of STP and NHPP funds to the US 191 Monticello to Dry Valley project. It's currently funded at $7,227,290. The $800,000 of NHPP funds and $200 of STP funds for this request are available through their efficiency funds. This project is prepared for advertisement. During the design process, it was noted that shouldering material was omitted in the concept estimate and that additional asphalt profile lane leveling is needed for this project. There is also an escalation in the costs associated with the hot-in-place recycle that is reflective in this new estimate. During the design process, it was determined that there are 4 severely corroded culverts that need to be replaced prior to this rehabilitation of the pavement. This request amount would be added to the project to make it for a entire or a whole advertisement. The new project value would be $8,227,290. This is also a location map. As you see, it goes north of Monticello and into Dry Valley.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on this particular request. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item is also in Region 4. Region 4 has requested approval to add $2,250,000 of STP and STP bridge funds to the project SR 118 bridge replacement over Severe Valley, currently funded at $850,000. The $1.1 million of STP funds for this project are available from the pavement efficiency funds, and $1.1 million of STP funds are available in their master PIN of 14.315. This has been coordinated with the Structures Department. The project originated as bridge widening to enhance safety on this corridor. Based on the type of the original structure, issues arose with continuing this concept due to its low load range ratings. Design and capacity issues. It was determined that the structure should be replaced. The new scope of this project is to replace the structure and provide the roadway items necessary to tie into the new structure. The new project value would be $3.1 million. Also included is the map showing that it starts north of Austin in the Severe Valley and crosses the bridge right there.
Did I hear you say bridge over Severe Valley?
Severe River. Bridge. Yeah, it would be one long bridge.
Big bridge.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'd second that.
Motion and a second for this particular request. Any further discussions, concerns, questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item also deals with the Transportation Alternative Project funds that we talked about a minute ago. Region 4 requests approval to add $80,000 of their TAP funds to a new transportation alternative project. The US 191 Arches Bike Path Project, PIN 16909, is in partnership with Arches National Park to construct a bike path that connects the county's bike path into the national park entrance. The total project value is $400,000. Arches National Park will manage the project and contribute the remaining to $320,000. On this map, you'll see the existing bike path at the bottom of the picture. Comes across the wash here and into the national park.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and seconded by Mrs. Hopeful.
It's all right.
Any further discussions?
It's sure crowded there for cars. Anything we do to help?
Yes.
You know, Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the travel section of the New York Times last Sunday, they had a thing about arches. And when to go and visit it because of the crowding and getting off the highway to do that. It was interesting. The good news is we were in the paper. The bad news is we were in the paper.
All in favor of this project, say aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 7, Region 4 and Central Traffic and Safety request approval to add a new project. The project title is The Various Routes in Region 4, Texas Turndown and Guardrail Replacement to the current step. The Texas Turndown and Guardrail Replacement Project, PIN 16789, involves using $1,067,993 to combine HZIP, the high-risk rural route funds, and other HZIP funds to replace substandard Texas turndown, end treatments, and guardrail on rural, local, and collector routes. The exhibit shows the table, that the 14 individual locations and the stretches of road. Some of them are just essentially points, others have a longer run, and the map shows the individual locations and where they will be completed in Region 4.
This is replacing the front of the guardrail with the Texas turnaround.
We call that, an end section. So, when you end a guardrail or a Jersey barrier, you have to have some type of way of ending that that's safe.
Yes.
So, years ago, the standard was Texas turndown, and that was basically taking a guardrail and diving it into the ground.
Right.
Those have proven, surprise, to be kind of a launching ramp. And so
Yeah.
we've been working programmatically for the last 15, 20 years to remove those. And I think, Jason, we have them all off the interstate now. And the commission had
And then we're putting an energy absorbing structure there.
Impact attenuators.
Yeah, attenuators.
Is what they're referred to generically. So.
I spent a lot of time Googling Texas turndown. Economic development.
It's not when you ask some girl to dance in Texas and you get turned down.
Yeah, there were all kinds of examples, none of them describe what you're saying. I'm happy to be newly educated yet again. I move to approve, if we're there.
Yeah.
Second. So motion and the second on the subject. So any further discussions?
No, thank
Questions? Thank God. Don't go there.
No, yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's funny, you Google.
Motion carries.
Please call us.
It was a little late.
We have too much time on your hands.
Thank you. Our next item, also in Region 4, the Structures Division requests approval to add $920,000 of additional funding to the SR 55 West Price Connection Bridge Rehabilitation Project, PIN 13799. The current project value is $4 million. This project will replace the deck of this bridge in Price that spans Upper and Main Street. I'll show the map in a second. The bridge has 5 spans and is approximately 680 feet long. The project was originally scoped for cast-in-place deck replacement. It was decided during the final design that partial depth precast deck panels would be utilized. This method of deck replacement helps reduce traffic impacts, but requires more concrete since the deck is thicker. The new project value would be $4,920,000. Here is our map showing the bridge that we would be replacing.
Okay.
I move approval.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, motion and approved, seconded by Megan. Any further discussions?
Where is this money coming from?
The money is coming from, I'm sorry, not have that on here.
Do we assume it exists in somebody's?
It's coming from the structures program.
Okay, thank you.
Texas turned down.
Commissioner Law, is that?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely, thank you.
So, any more questions?
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Okay. Chris, would you like to come up? Our next item is on the Federal Recreational Trails Program. I'm going to invite Chris Haller to come up with me. We'll let Chris introduce himself.
I'm Chris Haller, and thanks, Bob, and Chair and Commissioners, Smithfield City residents. Thanks for having me here today. It's good to see a few familiar faces at our meeting today. Before you today is a recommendation that's been proposed by our joint advisory councils in regards to the Recreational Trails Program grant, which is administered by our Division of Parks and Recreation through the Federal Highway Program. Out of the 60 applications that our council reviewed, as you can see, they recommended 32 projects to be funded. Those impact 17 counties across the state, so once again, geographically supported. It should be noted on the overall awarded amount, which is a little more than $7 million. 24% of that helps funds the overall requested amount, which is about a little more than 6.9 million. And so I think it's very important that for the commission to know that this is basically the only funding mechanism for non-motorized trails within the state. And yes, we do divide that equally, 50% between motorized and non-motorized. However, out of the 32 projects, there's a higher percentage of non-motorized trails that are being funded through that. So just some information. You should have a breakdown, hopefully, that Bob presented within the packet. So
I just have one
yes,
question on the Joes Valley. It says that, you know, if it's in vault toilets, and it has in parentheses man-sized. It's a new one for me.
Well,
it's on our notes, excuse me.
That is an extreme oversight on our part. Should be more, I guess, appropriate for human size. But since we're talking Texas turned down, maybe it's one of those as well. Hard to tell.
No,
so
that's the first time I've seen that.
yeah. The other, since you bring that up, the other item I'd like to point out is that there is the first, I believe, in Utah. Once again, is groundbreaking here. I got to remember which project it is. It's actually number 23 on the list under non-motorized. It's with the Salt Lake Climbers Alliance, which is a nonprofit group. It's the first vertical trail in the country. So this is kind of groundbreaking, which I thought was very unique. I really encouraged the nonprofit group to put in for several years because I wanted Utah to be a first for rec trails to have a vertical trail. Cool. So you have that before you today. So maybe we can, crack a bottle of champagne afterwards or something like that. So.
That is world-class climbing at that location. People who come around from around the world to climb that.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Chris, I appreciate all this. The trail signage in Utah is not as good as I do a lot of trails. We're not just as good here as we should be. So thank you for putting money in for those purposes. I could give you a dozen examples, but I was in the Tetons last week, a lot better there than here.
Yeah.
We deserve better, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions?
Oh, no,
questions
you need a
for
motion?
Chris?
No, this information only.
Commissioners, so Chris runs this program. It's he does an outstanding job doing this. How many years?
Too many.
But they do it. He does an outstanding job on this. Always more requests than they can find ways of funding. They do spread the money, I think, very well.
Yes.
So they're providing this to the commission. It's a commission's decision. So we bring this to you basically for information this month. I like the public to have an opportunity to look at it through your process, and then a request for approval next month. I don't know if Chris is going to make the journey next month, but if there's any questions you have on any projects over the next month, please let us know. We can work with Chris.
Well, I'll tell you this, it's a lot of bang for your buck on this. It's way more than a lot of projects. And congratulations, because it's
And the usage of our trails, excuse me, Danny, I'm just going to say, every time you go up there, there's exponential increase in the amount of bikers.
Exactly.
Chris, this vertical trail, how many feet
How
vertically
many
is this?
vertical?
I think that's going to be determined when they kind of get on the ground. A lot of it's already in place, but it's more for the bolt replacement. Some of those harnesses, things along those lines, were actually installed in the early 70s, and so they've exceeded their life expectancy, and so now is an opportunity to go in and upgrade some of those, along with defining more of a access to those climber areas. It should be known on this particular project too, I'd like to point out that it's actually on private ground. Yes, it is, and the nonprofit group worked with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so this property actually lies on that, so they have a lease from the church in order to provide this recreational experience. So once again, you see a multitude of partners coming together collectively, and I suspect over the years too, you'll probably see more of a match come in from the Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation grants to try to extend the federal highway grants along with the state recreational trails Governor's Office of Outdoor Rec grants.
That's awesome.
There's also the Forest Service is working as well to extend the Bonneville Shoreline Trail through this area, because there's a lot of, you know, as the climbers are accessing the different routes, there's a lot of different trails. So they're trying to consolidate those trails to, you know, vertical trails, as well as create a horizontal trail that's more continuous with the Bonneville Trail. So there's a lot of work going on in this area.
Is that the one they call the Highway to Heaven, Chris?
Only the fall.
Yeah, I guess it depends on which county you're in.
Every trail's the Highway to Heaven. Thank you.
I think that's crazy.
Go ahead, Roger.
Okay. Our next item is the draft fiscal year 2019 to 2024 statewide transportation improvement program. We are seeking approval to send that to Federal Highways and FTA. I apologize, in this opening line that it states the draft 2018 to 2023. That's incorrect. It is actually the draft 2019 to 2024 state program has been prepared and summarized to reflect guidance and suggestions resulting from the region priorities in the April Commission workshop. The roughly 180 pages connected contain that information. At the May Commission meeting, approval was given to publish the draft STIP. Notice was given to the local newspapers with information regarding to whom and how to comment. The draft STIP was also open for review and public comment from June 30th through August 4th. We've received those comments. We had roughly 256 commenters. Of those commenters, we carved those up into individual components where one commenter would make multiple comments. We had just shy of 550 comments that we reviewed that are part of that, and we'll actually just received that about 5 hours ago, that final review, so we don't have that for you today, but we'll have that available for you to review. The majority of those comments were around integrated transportation, active transportation, safety. Though that was by and large the most comments that we received were around those components. The individual MPOs, part of this, the motion needed for approval to send the draft STIP to FTA and FHWA contingent upon the MPOs approving as well. We have one MPO that's already approved, and the other three will be approving by the end of this month.
I'm happy to make the motion.
Second.
Thank you.
There's a motion and a second.
Commissioner.
Question, that number 59 mentions in there that we paid $40,000 for a trail cat. Is that a maintenance vehicle for these trails, both motorized and non-motorized?
Are you on the recreational trail program?
I'm on.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Number 59, is that the wrong?
Okay, that's the previous item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, we can
Certainly left.
He
That tends to be what they do with those. Yes, it's to maintain, either to grade the trail, or if it's just for a snowcat, and I can't see.
It's trail cat.
Trail cat. They'll actually groom snowmobile trails or even cross-country trails.
Okay. apologize for taking him back in history. No problem.
Okay, any more discussions?
Mr. Chair, just
Yes, please.
just quickly, one thing. I did mention that in the first bullet, the date is incorrect, but I want to make sure that we've noticed this correctly. It does say 2019 to 2024 in the public notes, and the item is noticed, is
the motion is correct.
And the motion is correct. So
Okay.
it was just that one in the background detailed information that is incorrect.
We're just reading those 155 pages. We're just thinking about the first meeting I had in this particular session, and we had this big binder. And how much we have become efficient in our organization. Yes, Bob, he showed me half of that. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be sending for highways. Yeah, I still get the binder.
You see?
We're not going back to binders. Does anyone up for that?
No, thank you. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll keep the commission informed. So the next step is for Federal Highways and FTA to review this. And when they approve it, we'll let you know.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 11, Highway 89 Exchange with Davis County. And Charles Logan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Charles Stormont. I'm the brand new Director of Right-of-Way, so please take it easy on me. I was going to say the new and improved Director of Right-of-Way, but Lyle showed up to keep me honest, so I can't tell you that with a straight face. If I could take just a moment to tell you how excited I am to be at UDOT, to work with Carlos and Shane and Terry and a really great group of people. I previously represented the department in the Attorney General's office, and I am very excited to be a part of this team. The item I have to present is a fairly, I hope, straightforward property exchange in Davis County in 2015 as part of our connection of Antelope Drive through Layton up to Highway 89. We acquired a small piece of property from Davis County, or we acquired access to that property. We'd like to finalize our acquisition of that parcel by exchanging a very similar sized piece of property just to the north of it along Hobbs Creek Drive, outside of the right-of-way that we need, as you'll see here. In the past, Hobbs Creek Drive swung a little bit further out and then connected into Highway 89. We've eliminated that access point as part of the reconstruction efforts in tying Antelope Drive in. So creating a number of safety improvements along this stretch of Highway 89, creating some great connectivity with Antelope Drive. What we would like to request of the Commission is to permit this exchange with Davis County, our partners on this, and move forward with that exchange.
I'd move for approval.
Second. Motion in the second. Any further discussion on this exchange?
How big is this property, Charles? I'm just trying to...
So the green parcel there on the map, the parcel that's currently in UDOT's name is 0.1585 acres, a hair over 6,900 square feet.
Yeah.
The parcel that we would be acquiring from Davis County is 0.1363 acres, a hair over 5,900 square feet. They are a little bit different in size, but I think the difference boils down to about 2/100ths of an acre.
Sounds good.
You guys don't have a sign on that, do you?
No, we don't have a sign on there.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Lyle, you've done a good job in training. Good job.
So far, so good.
Give me time.
So Ivan is coming back to talk about administrative rule review.
Yeah. I believe this was so I could say that I've done this twice, separating it. So thanks, Charles.
Second hearing.
This is for an administrative review update of the scenic byways. The state scenic byway has approved the following actions which require amending the rule. The designation of the new Morgan-Parley's Scenic Byway and the extension of the Great Salt Lake Legacy Parkway Scenic Byway to include the new West Davis corridor and the causeway up to the Antelope Island State Park. And then to rename the Great Salt Lake Legacy Parkway Scenic Byway to the Great Salt Lake Scenic Byway. For your review, there are two maps. The first one showing the extension the West Davis corridor and the inclusion of the Antelope Island Causeway into the Great Salt Lake Scenic Byway. And then the second one shows the Morgan to Parley's Scenic Byway. So also included is the change in the administrative, or the administrative rule denoting the name change in the addition to the Morgan to Parley's Canyon.
So Ivan, once the designation has been granted and the byways are designated, is it written in stone, is done, or you can take it back and take it off the list of the byway?
I can try to answer it, and if I miss something, throw a chair. Under the administrative rule, it's the Scenic Byway Committee. So UDOT's responsibility is really to make sure that the Scenic Byway Committee went through their processes that have been outlined in this in the rule. And Chris Potter, who works in my organization with Bob and I, he participates in the Scenic Byway, and that's his responsibility to go through and make sure that all those requirements have been met. And then it's really up to the committee to make those changes. So if they see fit to make a change, they can make a change, but it's through that committee that handles those changes.
What kind of privileges counties or cities or entities are losing by designating scenic byway?
The biggest thing that I've heard, and Carlos, jump in, I don't think they feel like it's a loss. As a scenic byway, some of the billboards, things like that, are limited. And the West Davis corridor, there was already discussion along the 5 cities, I believe, that have already basically said, if you don't do this, we will. We don't want billboards on that road. So we just went along with them. There's, I want to say 32 committee members. I can't remember for sure, but there's several committee members that include local agencies, local cities and counties, and so this is really a statewide group that participates in that committee.
Any questions from the commission? Okay.
It's good to know. Yeah.
So it's no longer Legacy. I apologize for.
The byway, the road is still Legacy, but the scenic byway name, they I think wisely chose to make it more generic because the road north of Legacy is West Davis now, so.
Yeah, makes sense.
No, I agree. Legacy's a loaded word.
Now you say no billboards, but there's definitely signage along the route.
Correct. There are signage.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
It does also give them opportunities to create pull-outs, things like that. But that's really part of their plan, how they want to do that. So, okay.
You did good.
Thank you.
Any further discussion from the commission members? Yes, please.
This is somewhat facetious, but with the changes up the canyon with the wildlife, I think some of them were a little confused because the signage going up there is not quite as, we've upgraded a lot of it, but there's still a few signs that could be upgraded on the highway. And Carlos, this is one of my big pitches, but it looks really good on I-80, but there's a few more like on I-215 East right there that I'm sure those wildlife are not as happy about it as they could be. So just something to think about as we look forward for I know those are expensive, much more expensive than I thought.
Yeah, and the one thing I can guarantee to Commissioner Kramer is that we are always going to be replacing signs.
I appreciate that.
What do we have? 133,000 signs out there that, so we will always be spending millions of dollars every year replacing signs. I just need to figure out exactly where you're going so I could try to get
Didn't Region 2 have a whole raft of Luke Kramer Memorial signs?
They're beautiful, and I'm just saying,
I think the Commissioner's referencing the fact that we didn't change all the signs in Region 2.
No, excuse me.
133,000 is quite a legacy. And they're big and they're expensive, but thank you for what you're doing in so many ways. It is just so proud to be here in Utah, so thank you for that.
Any more information from UDOT staff would like to share before we... Next meeting of the commission is September 13th through 14th in Tuella. And along with that, we'll have the staff update then, maybe some education about...
Would the Commission prefer to do that before we do the tour or after we do the tour?
Before.
Oh, Terry's already making a face. Terry, when? Before. Because Terry has to go do a presentation to the league.
Before it's better. We're
Okay.
more alert.
Yeah, you will lose the rest of
Somebody
it.
says that it's at Terry's time. It'd be
No.
better for you to
No,
get
she
for
said
sure.
before.
Too, it's not just me.
Didn't she say before?
She did.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
So we're all on the
Okay.
same page.
We heard that we said before.
You guys are very sensitive.
Sensitive.
Don't go there, Carly.
So if there's no other matter, yes.
I just want to make a comment about that trail across the river in South Weaver. A few years ago, we had a grant to connect the Bonneville Shoreline Trail and come to South Weaver. In Davis County, we went to them and offered to do that. And South Weaver refused to allow it to their city because they didn't want the trash that would be thrown away. How things have changed.
So we do.
I mean, it's a different time, that's just 25 years ago, but it shows you that progress fixes things that should have been fixed then when the government gave us the grant to do that and pay for it.
Well, you know, Commissioner McConkey, you're right on. It's amazing to me, and I think all the commissioners probably see this, as we travel around the state, how often we hear about active transportation needs, how important trails are to communities. We didn't hear this 10 years ago.
No.
And it's just it's a change in what's important to our communities.
Well, you know, and I've just completed the drive to Maine and back, and every state is doing what we're doing here with buckle up, seatbelt, really cute little jingles, telling how many people have been killed so far in Ohio, Pennsylvania this year. They're bringing it before the driving public just like we are. Everybody in America is conscious about these untimely deaths of people we love.
It's crazy. Over 40,000 people last year.
Wow. Precious soul.
So do you need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I so moved.
Okay.
Second.
See you. Well,
Thank you.
Welcome back, Heather.
Yes.
Are you driving back that way? I just would like to be
Oh,
dropped
I
off
know.
at the hotel.
Yeah, I can drop you off. I'm going back down to Providence.
You guys had a long.
Oh, yeah, so that's